Hello, everybody. Welcome into our latest live broadcast. It's the 10th of January, 2025. My name is CareyHolzman, and we are kicking off 2025 with a very strange, weird, maybe wonderful idea concept from our friends over at Minisforum, which we can't wait to share with you. But first, hello. Welcome into the new year. We got back from our little gallivanting around California. Got out of there just in time. I promise it wasn't me who started the fires. It wasn't me. I wasn't anywhere near the place. Actually, we were pretty close. We weren't really affected by it, other than the drive back from Los Angeles was a bit like driving through an apocalypse. It was, wow. I shouldn't laugh about it. It was one of the strangest, most surreal experiences of my life, with semi-trucks blown over sideways onto the road with their wheels sticking out from the wind that was so windy, stuff blowing across the road, trees and well, not trees, but branches and leaves and gravel hitting the car constantly, cars having trouble staying in their lanes, and then in the just sort of looking out off to the sides. I drive at night. I like to drive at night, and just the mountains were glowing orange with smoke. I mean, it smelled good. You definitely didn't want the windows down, get pelted in the face with random stuff blown across the road, but it was surreal. It was very surreal. Now, I have to tell you, California is a very expensive place. There's nowhere to park your car. There's no such thing as no rush hour. It doesn't matter what time you get on the freeway. It's just a question of how long you're going to be sitting in this big parking lot. There's no longer a day that you can go to Universal Studios or Disneyland or any of these theme parks. That's a slow day. Disneyland, we used to, in the 90s, early 2000s, used to drive up there, walk up to the gate, buy a ticket, and go in. Especially like during the week, away from a holiday, you could just pretty much have a fairly empty park, and, ride times are maybe 15 minutes and a wait. Now you can't do that. You can't just show up and arrive at the gate at Disneyland. It does require reservations 7 days a week. It is practically sold out 7 days a week, no matter what you do. There's no, as far as I know, no more slow days, no more just showing up. $35 to park your car at Universal Studios and at Disney. In fact, Universal was sold out completely on Friday, just totally sold out. And it was a Friday after everybody supposedly gone to work and had their vacation time. And before 11 o'clock in the morning, it was already sold out. So I don't know where all these people are coming from, but I felt like I was in some kind of a punishment island kind of play, where there's just too many people. Everything's very, very expensive. The fast food, there's more money because their minimum wage is higher. There's like zero water pressure. You try and take a shower or anything, it's all very, they got 10 million people all live in this one little area, and everybody's got to share, and so everybody gets less. Nowhere to park your car. You got to fight for your spot on the freeway. Yeah. So it was good to get away. I think I'm done with that for a while. I got it out of my system. I talked to the warden, and they let me out of the penitentiary state of California. Whew! And the drive back was just the most surreal experience I've ever had. So now I think I need a vacation from my vacation. Wow. It's changed a lot. I think the last time I was at Disneyland or Universal was 20 years ago. It is not the same place anymore. Not even. Barely recognizable. Every line for every ride was an hour or longer. So if you're going to wait standing in line for a 2-minute ride for over an hour, you might get 3 or 4 rides in the day. The staff at Universal Studios were profoundly unprofessional. They lacked any empathy, and they were just appeared to be poorly trained. Whereas when you go to Disneyland, the staff 100% is accommodating and compassionate. And so I must say that the experience at Universal, for $125 a ticket to get in on a slow day, $150 to be in there on a regular day, I expect to be treated better at those prices. And then, Disney certainly respects that. They had I had to tell you, well, we were at Universal Studios. They have a little hot dog concession stand there. and they sell a 2-foot long jumbo hot dog, like a thick hot dog, not like a regular hot dog, but one that's like what Costco would sell for Americans familiar with Costco, but 2 feet long. And that hot dog, that one hot dog, was $29.99. It was $30 at Universal Studios. They had no crowd control. They had nowhere for you to stand. They had no barriers. They would just bark at you. Move up, move up. And then you move up and they go, move back. What do you want, man? There's nothing. And then if there was a fire, you'd have been trampled. There's zero crowd control. They cram as many people in there as they can. And the strange thing in California is, even if you go there in the middle of a weekday afternoon, there being Disney or Universal Studios, as soon as the sun goes down, which is pretty early in the wintertime, usually by 6 o'clock, it's pitch dark, the crowd doubles in size. So I guess a lot of Californians, have annual passes, and they like to go at night. So no matter how busy you thought it was during the day, oh no, you just wait till the sun goes down. You are going to be in a sea of people, shoulder to shoulder, stomach to the back of the person in front of you, the person behind you right up against you, and you're going to just walk your way through there somehow, figuring out where you got to go. Some people will just stop because they're trying to figure out where they are and where they're going, completely oblivious to the fact that they've just blocked everybody behind them from moving forward. So I've had enough of that. Now, that being said, it was a good trip. Those things, there's nothing much you can do, right? I think I've learned that that part of my life is done. I have no interest in ever doing Disneyland again, or Disney California, or Universal. They used to be fun, used to be expensive but fun. Now it's expensive and not fun, especially with the way we were treated at Universal. It's just disgusting that they would act as though they were doing you a favor by letting you pay all this money to be there. The lack of consistent training and the lack of any sort of empathy for the folks who are maybe just trying to figure out where they're supposed to be, they bark at you like you're doing something wrong rather than try and help you or assist. So enough of that. Done with it. So anyway, maybe somewhere a little more peaceful and relaxing, a little more rural for the next trip. But in the meantime, the rides that we did go on were fun, and the weather was good, and we were able to avoid the fires that are happening there in Pacific Palisades and Pasadena, very close to where we were. In fact, Universal had shut down for 2 days as a result of the fires being so close. But that was after we were already back. So anyway, got that out of my system. And we're back at it. So when we came back, we have some packages waiting for us from, for example, from our friends at Minisforum, as well as what I've told you about prior to the end of the year, where we had a couple of items that were waiting for review. We still have those items to do. And of course, even when I'm away, I'm still emailing back and forth with companies trying to work out deals. So it wasn't like a complete 100% cutoff away from away from it all. I still had work to do. And then I had a client who decided that they were very concerned on January 6th that there was going to be another riot with the, signing in of the, although it's not the presidential inauguration, January 6th is when they confirmed the presidency and whatnot. And suddenly I got all these emails on January the 6th going, can we back up all of the computers, and can I have a copy of the backup, and what are we going to do? And I'm like, oh my. I was like my first day of vacation. And I said, look, we always back up the computers. When it comes to backing up your computer, it's always about what you never saw coming. It's never, or very rarely, about you predicting it. So when January 6th last year had occurred, nobody saw that coming, right? Except perhaps the people that were involved in it directly. It's likely never going to happen again because now we're prepared for it. So first of all, if my customer was really concerned about that, he should have told me a week earlier. But second, we're already covered for that regardless. It's not like we're doing anything special because something might happen today. That's ridiculous. That's the dumbest reason to back up. I mean, any reason to back up is a good reason, but waiting for something might happen, so I better back up, should be your thought every single day. Over 10,000 structures have burned in Los Angeles, and it's still burning now as we do this video. You think there's any computers or data in those structures? So having your backup, and even having it in the building, is not enough. Not if your data is important to you. And that's why we're so happy to work with the folks at Acronis that make it so easy. There's lots of other ways besides Acronis. I choose Acronis for my business and for my customers and for my liabilities, my legal requirements, so that I can ensure that my customers can rely on me if emergency hits. Nobody in California saw this coming. No one had a clue. That's why you back up your data. Last January 6th, no one, well, 4 years ago, no one saw that coming. Where you're going to lose your data isn't about what you're worried about. It's not, oh, this could happen or that could happen. Nothing specific. It's that something unspecific could happen at any time without warning, and that you're prepared for it. That's it. That's all there is. So, oh, I want to try something here. I'm going to turn on, let's see, we'll turn this on. And I want to turn this on. And I'll try this too. We'll see if this works. I don't know if this is going to work or not. Okay, well that did not. Okay, well that did not work. We're trying to multi-stream out through multiple platforms, and it seems that it did not like that. I'm going to try one more thing here. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I apologize for that that little issue. I've got to figure out. I'm trying to figure out how to multi-stream to like Facebook and Twitch and Twitter and all that at the same time. And there are services where you can pay for that, but the services cost more than the videos will earn by about 10 times. So I can earn $5 extra if I want to spend $50 a month to make $5 more a month, which doesn't really make any sense unless there's an opportunity for growth where that could eventually start to more than pay for itself. So we're working on some free options here within OBS for multi-streaming, and the last few videos we've done, we've tried it. It has not worked at all. This time it crashed on me when I enabled it. So I am making progress. We're not getting the same error, but this is the price of free, right? There's nobody to call for support. You're sort of on your own, and the only way to really test it is while we're live. So I apologize for the interruption, but we should be back now. I want to shout out and say thank you to our viewers here with the Super Chat contributions. We have a few here I want to mention. Let me just jump over to, I got to go over here. Alan Lindos with $57.77. Well, thank you, Alan. Alan says, welcome back, Carey and Mara. And chat, I'm celebrating my late 72nd birthday. His birthday was on December 27th. Oh, he's a Christmas baby. Well, happy belated birthday, Alan, and thank you for sharing your present with us. That's a very generous contribution. Our friend Peter Laycock joining us from Scotland with a 10-pound super chat says, hello, Carey and Mara and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh 23 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 5 degrees Celsius. He says, welcome back from your vacation. So happy to be back. Thank you, Peter. Mark Gaines renewed his membership, now a member for 32 months. Look at that. I love it. Thank you, Mark. He says, hello, Carey, Mara, and everyone in the chat. There's Frank Jimmy also just became a member. Thank you, Frank, for joining us here at our tech club. Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat said, I hope you got to unwind and relax. It was the opposite. But thank you for the super chat. Nick Caffrey with €10, because he says, welcome back, Carey and Mara. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for the super chat. Planet Cryos with a $5 super chat says, what was relaxing for you? Sounds like mainly complaints. Well, what was relaxing for me was the drive. I enjoy driving. It's about a 6-hour drive between Phoenix and Los Angeles. And right up until you get into, I would say just past Indio, as you're heading into LA, specifically on the 210 freeway, that's where things get a little bit stressful. And thank goodness we didn't have to take the 5 or the 405. Those are always very busy freeways, 24/7. The 101 in Hollywood is always been a very slow freeway. You can get out of your car and walk basically. But yeah, the drive itself was very enjoyable. The car ran really well, no issues, no tickets, no accidents, no breakdowns. All of that was fantastic. And we enjoyed a day at the Los Angeles Original Farmers Market, which has been an institution for, geez, if it's not 100 years, it's got to be since the 1930s anyway. And that place has been around forever. They have like 100 different stalls of different vendors selling anything from fruits and vegetables to food from other ethnicities, a variety. Each stall may be 15, 20 feet long, and that's it. And you move on to the next one. They're back to back. There's places that sell just nothing but pickles, and places that sell nothing but nuts, and there's pizza, and there's a restaurant, and there's a donuts, and there's all kinds of different foods from all over the world, from people that have started a life there in LA, rented one of these stalls or bought one of these stalls. And what a great experience, except again, we went during the middle of the week, nothing special going on. Place is jam-packed. We were very lucky to even get a parking spot. And it's shoulder to shoulder on a Thursday. Like, I just couldn't believe how busy it was on a weekday when the holidays were behind us. I mean, if you open a stall at the Original Farmers Market in Los Angeles and you can't stay in business, you must have something. You're doing something very wrong, because you get all the traffic you'd ever want. And it doesn't matter what the business is. You could sell jewelry, whatever. It's all right there, and it's all it's opened up on the outside, but it's got a roof over it. So if it's raining or if it's inclement weather or whatever, you're getting in, but you're still sort of outdoors. Anyway, if you've never experienced it, if you're ever in Los Angeles, it's definitely a place to go for just the variety of everything that's there. Chocolates, chocolatiers, as I mentioned, different foods from around the world, each restaurant specializing in typically wherever they're from. And then the history of it is very interesting. There's a restaurant called upHere's, which I think has been around since like 1938. It's a staple. Bob's Coffee and Donuts has been there. McGee's Nuts has been there. I think McGee's Nuts started in 1911. Although the farmers market wasn't started until the 30s, they moved and got a stall into the farmers market, and they've been, that business has been run by generations of family members for over 100 years. And some of the best food you'll ever eat. It's really, really good. So, yeah, it's just California is a very crowded place. So if you're somebody like me that wants to get away from it all, the last place I want to go is a penitentiary. So that's what it felt like for me. What's up?
Don't forget the pickle boats.
Pickle boat. So they have a place, and you can search for it here on YouTube, but they have a place called Kaylin, Kaylin, Kaylin Pickles, and all they sell are pickles, and they specialize in unique flavors of pickles, and they make pickle sandwiches where the pickle is the bread. It's a giant pickle. And then they have something called a pickle boat, where these giant pickles, they're so big they can cut them in half and then just put stuff on top of them, and they call that a pickle boat. And that's all they sell. And they're the crunchiest pickles. They must have 8 or 10 different flavors, and that's all they do. And they're busy. Like, they forget about the ice cream and the other traditional places you'd expect a line. This place, nothing but pickles. So busy they have 2 different stalls in this farmer's market, which is insane. Like, the one stall's not big enough, and it's all about the pickles. Then I saw there was a trend on pickles happening now with putting edible glitter on pickles. They call them glitter pickles. This is not at farmers market. This is just a trending thing on TikTok that's happening right now. I don't know why. It doesn't do anything. It's just people like to eat glitter pickles. It's edible glitter, and that is a current trend. This generation, this current young generation, is all about the pickles. Pickle sandwiches, pickle drinks, glitter pickles. It's all about the pickles. Now, Mara's okay with that. She likes the pickle sandwich. In fact, it was probably one of the best she's ever had, because even what they're putting on the pickle sandwich, the deli meats and cheeses, are something different from what we're accustomed to. And just individually, those were outstanding for her. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. If you want to learn more about that here on YouTube, you can type in Original Los Angeles Farmers Market, and you can learn all about it, its history, and some of the vendors there. Anyway, Mars says, "Do not put glitter in your pickles." It is edible glitter they're using, not just any glitter. Anyway, so that gets you caught up with the trip. And let's see, Elijah 52 Dickens, now a member for 27 months. Right on. Well, thank you for renewing your membership. Athletic Cryos with a $2 super chat says, "I'm glad you're back, buddy." Yeah, me too. I think next time, any place else other than, say, New York or California, I think I'll be fine. Or at least if I go to New York, it's got to be upstate, not New York City. But yeah, it was challenging for me because what I'm trying to get away from it all, the worst place that you could go to get away from it all is where everything is happening. And I thought I was outsmarting it by going during the week after the holidays when kids are back in school, people are back at work. I don't think anybody works anymore. Like, I don't know where all the money's coming from. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you're on a residential road, there's no parking. Like, people are renting rooms out in their house, just a regular, ordinary house. So you've got 3 different people living in there, each with their own car on a road that was never designed to hold that many cars. So the driveway's full of cars, the street's full of cars. When packages are being delivered, they have to park in the street, like in New York. This is just in a regular, ordinary neighborhood in San Fernando Valley. It is just slammed with people everywhere. There's no escape from it other than getting out of San Fernando Valley. So in any event, that part of it stressed me out, if you can't tell. But that's okay. It's out of my system. I know now. Times have changed. And I will make different plans next time. But otherwise, how would I know? Now, today we've got something special for you, and that is we had a couple packages waiting for us when we got back. And our friends at Minisforum kicked us right off with some really neat new introductions to stuff that I didn't really know much about. And I was expecting a lot of companies holding back for the Consumer Electronics Show to save all their surprises for announcements that, hey, look what's coming. But the Consumer Electronics Show is also not what it used to be. Unfortunately, and I know I'm going to sound old here, but times are changing. And manufacturing costs are going down. And, you know, you can buy a big screen TV that used to set you back $2,000 for under $400 or $500 today. Like, it's 25% of what it used to cost for like a 75-inch TV or something. So the cost to go to the Consumer Electronics Show, the cost to have a booth built, to fly your employees out, to pay for the hotels, to pay for the flights, it is getting more and more cost prohibitive for these companies because the amount of profit they're making on the items is so minimal now that in order for that to be worthwhile, you'd have to be making a pretty decent profit on something, right? Secondly, when you announce a product that's coming out, you're basically telling all of your competitors what your ideas are before you've introduced it available for sale. So your competitors can see exactly what you're showing at CES. They can steal that idea from you, come out with their product first, and steal all of your hype and glory. It's becoming very discouraging. And this year, there was really nothing exciting. Did you see anything exciting at Consumer Electronics? Because, I mean, it's very, very, again, it's crowded, it's expensive, but usually it's so oversaturated with media because it is a media event. It's not open to the public. The public can say they're media and get in, but it's not open to the public. It never has been. And, you know, prior to that, we used to have Comdex. That went bye-bye because times have changed. We also had the E3 Gaming Convention in Los Angeles. That went bye-bye. Times have changed. There's no money in this anymore. The one big event we have left is Computex, but I don't want to sit on a plane for 13 hours to go to Taipei. I think it's in Taipei. Anyway, you know, 13-hour flight. It's hot and it's humid. It happens during the heat of their summertime. But that's where you can often see a lot of the excitement of what's coming out or what's nearing coming out from manufacturers that are right there in Asia anyway, right? That's not as big of an expense for them. And that tends to be, at this point now in 2025, the electronics show of the year. That's the expo that actually introduces new concepts and new ideas, and we'll see how much time, perhaps that has left. Now, Minisforum did have a booth at the Consumer Electronics Show, and they showed off a NAS. Minisforum is going to make a NAS? Yes, please. And there really wasn't, I don't know, there's just not much to talk about. I understand why not as many companies would participate. I understand why they would keep their innovation to themselves until they're ready to release. And as far as I could tell, it was still as busy as ever with people. So, at least if it was somewhere you could easily hail a cab or an Uber or something, but you're going to wait 90 minutes for that, just to wait for a cab. Food lines, all that stuff. It's over 100,000 people that are there. So, for somebody like me who gets claustrophobic around large groups like that, like I said, it's no thank you. But it's so oversaturated with media, there's no reason for me to go, because all the same stories come out. I can see the same exact stories coming out from multiple media outlets from the Consumer Electronics Show every year. So to cover something nobody else is covering is pretty rare. So I realize that's all very negative stuff, but unfortunately that's the reality based on what it used to be. It used to be exciting. It used to be a lot of innovation and a lot of hype surrounding some brand new technology. And the technology is reaching at least a type of a pinnacle or a peak or a plateau with regards to these new ideas. And instead it's more convergence, 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 which is all well and good. It's just not as exciting for me. But of course, you can always check out PC World and Tom's Hardware and hothardware.com if you want to read what they've covered this year at CES. Plus, there's plenty of YouTube videos. And, decide for yourself. Would you have wanted to pay for a plane ticket and suffer those prices and those lines and those crowds to see the highlights from the content creators that went out there and made videos? Because for me, there's a handful, probably I could count on one hand, of things that looked exciting. Everything else just felt like retreads of the same old stuff. Little robots and things like that are $10,000 and ridiculous for your average person. But it's great to see them developing it, but we've already seen this before. So in any event, those are just my thoughts on that. So Minisforum was there, and they were showing off, like I say, among other things, this dual screen monitor which Minisforum sent us right here. This is a portable dual screen monitor, and if I can pull up my screen capture, I will show you the page for this. Now this is all out now. I'm not showing you anything that's not released. You can buy everything I'm showing you, because otherwise, why should I show it? Let's see, where's my, I think it's this button here. Yeah. Okay, so this is the Minisforum MDSA156. It is a dual screen monitor, and they don't really do much of a very good job showing you what this monitor is, but essentially you have two 15.6-inch screens that are 1080 screens. Right now it says they're out of stock at this time, but they should be back in stock here next week. And if we scroll down, you'll see it's got the metal stand. Hallelujah. They don't deal with that folding stuff anymore. You can see here they've got it plugged into a mini PC, a Minisforum mini PC with the two screens. And this really gives you a very nice portable way, aside from having a laptop. And just some information on different ways it can be used, whether you want two screens for yourself or you want to fold it so that you could sit across the desk from somebody and you both see the same screen. And of course you can plug it into most laptops. The screens do have speakers in them. And we're going to review this later. Next week, we'll take a closer look at it. I just want to give you a heads up on it, just in case you want to jumpstart about seeing what we've got coming up here. So I really appreciate Minisforum sending that to us, because I like tech that can really be problem-solving tech, and this is that. Now, granted, there's not a lot of people, okay, that need to have two monitors together that can be portable. but there are enough to justify a product like this and for me to make a video about it, because it is a niche solution that is a problem that many people do have, depending on what business you're in. Minisforum also sent us a nice little Christmas bag, which had a little portable charger in it for cell phones and things that folds out like this. And these aren't products they sell. It was just like a thank you, happy holidays thing, which was really nice of them to send that with a little card and everything. So they also sent me a little mini screwdriver, which everything's branded with Minisforum. They don't sell it. They're just a little Christmas gift to their partners and friends. And I can't thank them enough. It's just the thought really that counts. And oh, Mara's got that screwdriver. This is, if you've looked at some of these portable screwdrivers.
Mine.
Yeah, Mara's decided she's going to keep this. But the folks over at Minisforum, you can barely see it says Minisforum right here. You take this lid off here, this cover, and then you have this little electric screwdriver. It's USB-C chargeable. And then these are all of your bits. Lots and lots of bits to choose from here. So I suppose if working on laptops or smaller electronics, it's definitely something I would use. And again, it's not something Minisforum makes. It's just something that it's a marketing material that's sent out to their friends and partners, which was really nice and completely unexpected from the holidays. So again, we really enjoy working with Minisforum. They don't pay us to do these videos, but at the same time, they're so easy to work with compared to other manufacturers we've worked with. Some of these manufacturers you may only see once or twice. You got to ask yourself why. Because they're usually not happy giving them enough. Even though they're not paying us, they demand more. And when they demand more, we say, well, you know, you're going to have to pay us. And then when we give them a number, they don't want to pay that much. And we're like, well, it was nice working with you. And we never see them again. Minisforum is one of the few who have never done that. They appreciate our content. They appreciate the value of our audience. And they're always a pleasure to work with. So hopefully we can continue on with that relationship into 2025. And boy, have we started it out with a bang, because this is one of the weirdest motherboards I have ever seen. First of all, we've shown these little motherboards before that are like mini ATX boards. That's not what this is. This is a micro ATX board. So what does that mean? That means there's more room for stuff. Now, granted, this is sort of like a first generation product, and it's a little bizarre, but well, you decide for yourself. Let me jump back over to our Minisforum page here. We have links for everything in the video description below the video today. And let me get over here to the window capture. Okay. This motherboard is so funky. This is $479, but what you're getting for $479 is the motherboard and the CPU. And the CPU is no slouch. It's an AMD Ryzen 9 7945HX, which is a laptop CPU. That also means it takes laptop memory. But here's the weird thing about it. You see it's got a heat spreader to protect the CPU. This big metal plate right here. If I can make that bigger. This metal plate is there to keep you from accidentally putting your cooler on crooked and cracking the chip in half, which, yes, happens. What's interesting, though, is Minisforum, for some reason, decided to put the holes for a cooler. Now, remember, you need to remember, this is a laptop CPU. Nobody changes the cooler out to a custom cooler on a laptop CPU, right? You have to use whatever the manufacturer provides. And Minisforum has decided, and I don't know the logic behind this, but I think it's cool, that you don't have to be Team Red or Team Blue. The AMD CPU, well, it is soldered onto the board and it has this big heat spreader covering it, accepts a Intel socket 1700 cooler only. So an Intel cooler goes onto an AMD chip. using SODIMM RAM, and you have 2 Gen 5 SSD slots here for NVMe, M.2, and you have a full-size PCI Express slot here for a full-size external graphics card, plus a slot for Wi-Fi. And you can use a standard power supply, whether you want to use small form factor or you want to use a regular desktop power supply. Nothing proprietary in that way. Now, there is no USB-C on this, just so you know. You've got a USB 2 header. We've got our front audio header. We've got our front panel header. And we've got 2 SATA ports, 2 traditional SATA ports, which I would never use. A standard 24-pin power connector. Your front port USB 3, Type A 3.2. You've got a header here for an all-in-one pump. If you want to put a liquid cooler on this, you could. Just make sure it's for Intel socket 1700. This is only a 55-watt CPU, so I think that's a complete waste of time. But, you know, to each their own. A regular CPU fan header there. And then your CPS, what do we call it? Power connector here, the little 8-pin CPU power connector there. And look at all the fan headers. System fan 1, system fan 2, system fan 3. And on the back of the board, again, I would say if there's something to fault it for, it would be the lack of I/O. So if we look at the back of the board here, you know, again, a little bit more about the details. And because it's a laptop CPU, it is a lower power consumption, which means it's not going to run as hot. The CPU TDP, they say, is 100 watts. That's got to be peaked out maximum. Well, no, I guess not. Turbo power is 120. The chip itself, I think, is 55. I'm not sure. I have to look into that. Well, we're going to find out today. Metal reinforced PCIe slots, high-speed RAM slots they're promoting here. The 2 SSDs are, now this says Gen 4. I thought they were Gen 5. Is it Gen 4 or Gen 5? Gen 4. My bad. My bad on that. And scrolling down. So because it's low power consumption, as with anything, it means it's going to have lower heat output, lower noise, high cost performance, cost to performance ratio, and an onboard CPU. All right, so these are the benefits that all are connected to low power consumption. That's true of even a Snapdragon processor, right? Lower power. It also results to not being the best performance if you're all about performance, in the same way that a 4-cylinder Corvette is not as fast as a 8-cylinder Corvette, right? It's common sense, isn't it? But they talk a little bit about the connectors. We fall a little bit short here as far as USB because we do not have Type-C. We've got 2 USB 3.2s and 2 USB 2.0s, Type A's, and then 2 more USB 3.2s on the motherboard header and 2 more USB 2.0s on the motherboard header. That's it. That's all you get. It is a 2.5 gig LAN adapter though, which is good. And then you get a display port out, an HDMI port out, and then there's a clear CMOS button right up here. But what's interesting is if you look at the board, look at all the empty space on it. We're so used to seeing boards where they've crammed as much as possible. Minisforum did what I would do, which is let's do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. Let's get a bigger board than we need, and let's spread some things out so things are easier accessible. Look at there's like nothing on this whole corner. This whole corner of the board is empty. Same goes with this corner. And look at the space that you have between, say, the CPU and the first PCIe slot. And I'm not sure if that space is standard or not, but because we don't have all this technology, gadget, circuitry around us, components, electronic surface mount components, this just feels like it's a lot less cramped and crowded. And when you start crowding things, you start generating a lot more heat. You can make it more difficult to upgrade. Things can get in the way of other things. Tall RAM can get in the way of coolers, etc. Now, this is a brand new product. You'll see it doesn't have any reviews yet. That's why we're so excited also to look at it, is we're one of the first reviews, as far as I know, to actually have the product in hand that we can fire it up and turn it on. This is a bare bones system that's going to require us to provide our own RAM, our own storage, our own power supply, and our own cooler and operating system. But when it's all put together, being a Ryzen 9, this should be a relatively quick system, especially when you consider the price. I do have a case on order for this, but we won't get the case till next week. And I went with something without any windows, without any RGB, that's slim, that will take a micro ATX board, because I don't think we've ever done one of those before. So I'm super excited to build something different. Now, granted, they're not giving these away, but when you consider how much you're getting for the money, just to give you an idea, right? Before you say anything about the price, I want to remind you that if we go over to Amazon's website and we look up the, let's see, let me go over here to Amazon. And let me bring up the window capture for you guys. Whoops. Well, there's our, if you like the video, please be sure and subscribe and hit the like button. I don't know what happened there. I hit the wrong button is what happened. But you know what? Must have been meant to be. Let's go over to our window capture and let me show you what's going on here. If you look at a Ryzen 9 CPU, and in this case, this generation of chip is what? Let me see. This is a Ryzen 9. I've already forgotten. 7000 series. So let's pick a 7000 series, like a 7900X. That chip is $400. Actually, yeah. So $400 plus sales tax were applicable just to buy the CPU, which does not include a motherboard, right? So for what you're getting for the money, now this is a 12-core, 24-thread. This is a desktop chip that's going to consume more power. Of course, it's going to be more powerful. It's going to cost more money, and it's going to require a much more heavy-duty cooler. However, I wanted to point this out because when you're looking at nothing but performance, you also are looking at opening up your wallet. So if you look at the Ryzen 9, the 9800X 3D is a heck, even do the 7800X 3D. How much money do you think this is? It's $450, nearly the price of the chip and the board here that we've got from Minisforum, and that only buys you 1 out of 6 components you need. You need a case, you need a power supply, you need RAM, you need storage, you need an operating system, you need a cooler, and granted, we need a lot of that too, but at least we already have the board in the chip, right? You don't have to worry about seating the chip properly, you don't have to worry about the added cost of running the system, but if you want that performance, if you just want that extra percentage point of performance, or whatever that percentage is, it's all equivalent to how much you're spending. But it's nice to have other options to consider. You know, the Intel side is no better, by the way. If we look at, say, the Intel, even if we go previous generation, 14900K, this is a very expensive chip. You know, you're looking at $433 for a chip that's over a year old. Again, it's not going to be power efficient by comparison of a laptop soldered chip like the Ultra 100 or Ultra 200 series. And if you go with Intel's latest chip, the Ultra 9 285K, I hope you're sitting down, because you're going to spend $600 for that chip. More than the cost of the chip and board by over $130 just to buy the chip, which again, you're going to need a pretty aggressive cooler on there. It's going to be a lot louder. It's going to cost more money to run. You're going to need a higher end power supply. And look, if you want to spend that kind of money, that's always been the option since day one of the computer. You can always spend more to go faster, but you lose value. The dollar per performance is degraded the higher up you go, just like with a car. If you bought a baseline Corvette, it's a reasonable price. You're like $60,000, something like that. But the minute you want 100 extra horsepower, you can damn near double your price just for that. Just that. So the value goes away, but that's what you're getting in exchange for that extreme. On the other hand, there's also such a thing as extreme efficiency. When we talk about extreme efficiency, we can talk about something called hypermiling, which again, if we use the car analogy, is taking a car that already gets really good gas mileage like a Prius and overinflating the tires, which I'm not recommending, but there are modifications that are essentially free. You know, you put air in the tires, doesn't cost anything. You're very gentle on acceleration, and you're looking ahead, and you're coasting as much as possible, and you try and compete with other people over how many miles per gallon you got. So, well, the manufacturer might say a Prius can get 43 miles to the gallon, or whatever it is, 47. Some people are doubling that. Yeah, they're doubling it simply by changing how they drive. And it's a fun little competition for them that doesn't require a wallet. It's just the opposite. So this is the exact same thing to a different extreme that is not answerable through money. Anybody with money can buy their way into whatever they want. Restaurants, clubs. It's not about skill. It's not about who you know. It's not about experience. It's not about education. If you just happen to be an heir to, you know, a trust fund, you can pretty much command the world around you with enough money. But for the rest of us, we can also do that, but we can do it in a way that requires our efforts and our skills and our experience and our determination, and we can achieve equally great things where we earn them versus being entitled to them. And this, for me, and the reason why I'm so excited about it, is I think much more affordable of a solution for this kind of performance. So let's just stop right there at that sentence. Because yes, there are higher performing boards, but the amount of extra money you're going to have to spend to get that little tiny extra bit of performance, the efficiency and the value goes completely away. And now you're doing something anybody with money can do. You're not thinking, you're just spending. Let somebody else do the thinking, right? That's what a butler's for. That's what a servant is for. But for the rest of us who can't afford servants, if you're like most of us, you want your money to go as far as possible, and you don't want to buy some rickety old piece of junk. You want to buy something really, really good, but also not really, really expensive. So that means you need to stay away from the really super cheap, inexpensive junk that's being sold for computer entry-level, budget-level computers. They're fine for temporary solutions. But what if you want something that's going to last a few years, you know, 6 to 8 years? You're going to have to spend a little bit more. But you don't have to spend some outrageous amount of money like you see all of these content creators do on YouTube that seem to have limitless budgets. I don't know anybody in my life who can just drop whatever they want on a computer financially. We need our money to go as far as it can to get as much as we can get. And most of us don't want to have to replace it in 2 years. So that's why I'm excited, right? Because here we've got something from a well-known established manufacturer. It is unlike anything else anybody's offering. It's unique and novel in its design. And at the end of the day, based on these specs, and we're going to find out, but based on these specifications, it should outperform all your friends' computers anyway, unless you have some rich friends. Let's do the unboxing. I've never opened this up before. We just received it. We've got some documentation. And in the box, there's our motherboard. We have a SATA cable, another SATA cable. This is Wi-Fi antennas. If you want to add a Wi-Fi card to this, there's no Wi-Fi card included. Now you can add Wi-Fi through USB. You can add Wi-Fi through there's a separate M.2 slot. So technically this has 3 M.2, or what do the Europeans do? The Europeans they don't do 3 like that. They do 3 like this. Is that how they do 3? We're Americans, so we do 3 like that. Anyway, so went off on a tangent. There's a Wi-Fi slot if you want to use a laptop style M.2 Wi-Fi card, then you would use these antennas. But you could also use that PCIe slot if you weren't putting a GPU in there to put Wi-Fi. Or you can use one of the USBs if you want to use Wi-Fi that way as well. Or you can do what we do here. We have a mesh and we plug in wired to the back of the computer, but it's actually wireless to the next mesh point. So 4 different ways we can go wireless. This is our I/O shield. Again, not a lot of I/O on this, but should be plenty for most people, because you got what? Keyboard, mouse, printer. You know, if you're using an external drive, that should not be plugged in 24/7 anyway. Plus, the case we're going to use gives us 4 more USBs. We're going to have 2 USB 2s and 2 USB 3s on the front of the case. That gives us a total of 8. So unless you need more than 8 USBs, you could always buy a USB hub. Or spend a little bit more. You know, the answer to your complaints is spend more money. Whatever your concern is, because I can already foresee comments, and I'm not looking at the chat, but I can already hear some of the comments about people saying it's not good enough. You know, if McDonald's isn't good enough, I'm not saying this is McDonald's, but you have to keep in mind price to value. If you want to go to a steakhouse where you get, you know, a private booth, requires reservations, and they come by with a little crumb comb and they scrape your table every 5 minutes while you're eating, and they won't leave you alone. How was your meal? Is there anything? Like, just leave me alone. You pay all this money for that experience. And yes, the quality is better, but at the same time, for the value, you could do that at home yourself, whatever they're serving you, for a fraction of the price, without having somebody constantly kissing your butt. You do you. In the meantime, what my argument is here, the point I'm trying to make, find me something similar to this at a similar or better price, and I'm telling you, nothing exists. This is in a class of its own. Now, I expect that this will change, right? When competitors get wind of this, they'll probably start coming up with their own mimicking designs. But in the meantime, there's only one place you can get this, and this is from Minisforum. Now, I do have a little PTSD from the Earying motherboard. Remember that we bought off AliExpress? And that was purchased for one reason and one reason alone, and that was to teach you why you should not be purchasing the motherboard from AliExpress. Now, that motherboard, by the way, I still have it because that is called a lesson, okay? And that lesson still exists for the same reasons. Now, to the untrained eye, you might say these boards look identical, but these boards are very, very different. This is an experimental Intel CPU that has no support for the graphics, which means the only way you can put Windows 11 on this is to put Windows 10 on it first. So stupid. Then you can upgrade to 11, but then if you get any updates after that, it'll just blue screen and crash. And there's no support, there's essentially no warranty on it. You're on your own. And I bought the Earying branded RAM, you'll see desktop RAM, and the Earying branded NVMe drive. None of these are high performing. This is all AliExpress garbage, just literal e-waste. It's no good. This is experimental. It's like somebody went through a garbage bin and they said, we're throwing out a bunch of these chips. They said, don't throw those away. Those are still perfectly fine. Does that sound like any of you? And they end up pulling stuff that really does belong in e-waste, and they end up using it. And if your time has no value and you don't mind constantly solving problems and being your own tech support, hey, plenty of these are available at AliExpress, and maybe you'll get it in 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know. It's complete trash. Now, I understand they make different value. There's different motherboards that have different chips from Earying at AliExpress. As far as I'm concerned, none of them compare to this. So first of all, this is mini ITX. This is full ITX. And you can see one board is significantly bigger than the other board. Okay? They're very different. This board is going to be 100% solid when it comes to any sort of drivers, stuff like blue screen errors, all of that stuff that comes along with this, you're not going to have here. Minisforum also has support. You really don't get any support here. And this board, in my opinion, is a much better value than this, because I believe that this board is something you're going to be very happy with, at least if everything works out the way it's painted by the marketing materials we've seen. And with Minisforum's history, I have no reason to believe that they've exaggerated any claims here. If so, that'll be the first time. This should be a perfect solution for those of you looking for the real value to be found in a very power efficient package that is going to be different from everybody else, but will also stand on its own with regards to performance. So while your friend may have a system perhaps that's a few percentage points faster, I promise you when you compare prices of what you paid versus what they paid, you might be jealous of a little extra performance on their desktop processor, but they're going to be jealous when they find out how little you paid for your machine and how well it keeps up. So you choose which lane you want to be in, but set your expectations appropriately, because I don't want you to think that there isn't something faster. There's always something faster. It's just how much money do you want to spend? Where's your cutoff? So for the price of what you're getting, if I can't emphasize this enough, I believe this has no competitor at this time. We're making this video the 10th of January 2025, and this is a weird motherboard. Let me just show you why it's so weird. If I can jump over to our close-up camera, which I think is, which one is it? Is it this camera here? Yeah, check this out. Look at all the empty space on this board. Turn this around. Look at how easy this is going to be to work on. Everything's wide open and spacious. It's not all crammed together. And so for that reason, working on it should be a pleasure. We should not be struggling like with a M-ATX board to get the little connectors on in between other little connectors spaced out, right? Those other boards are like Los Angeles. And then it's overcrowded and claustrophobic, and this board has some breathing room. And also, because it's micro ATX, you can use a proper everyday ordinary case and power supply, right? You can use a regular ATX case. This will fit in the Asus ProArt case. This will also fit in so many other different case designs, from NZXT, Cooler Master, standard micro ATX. Even standard ATX this will fit in. It'll just look really tiny in there. So many more options. You don't have to use the small form factor power supplies. That's the other thing. Those small form factor power supplies, there's fewer to choose from. They're more expensive. Just use a regular desktop power supply. Make sure you buy a case that takes that. You're good to go. On the other hand, if you want something really compact, well, then you can get a much smaller micro ATX case. Forget the case window. Forget the RGB. Do put a small form factor power supply to lighten the weight, as long as you've got enough wattage for whatever GPU you're going to add. I'm not going to add one. If I wanted to, I could spend $2,000 on a high-end NVIDIA 4090 Ti and pop it in here, and it's going to work fine. I'm not going to, because that defeats the whole point of what this system's about value. But you could. Then, of course, you'd need a power supply to supply the power that that video card would need. But this does have onboard video. All we have to do is add some RAM and storage and a cooler. So here's what I've done for that. I have this RAM that came out of something. This is some Crucial, where is it? Again, we have links for everything in our video notes and our video description that Mara's done for us. So this is Crucial 16 gig DDR5 RAM. Now, they do say it wants 5200, all right? So, and we'll take a look at the BIOS and everything here in a minute, but this is all we need. It's very inexpensive, $43. Oh, this is not the right RAM. This is my fault. What we need here are two of these. So there is a kit, like what I'm holding. This kit's a little bit different because whatever was in this kit, I've scratched it out. I upgraded something, and this was the RAM that we took out. But this is 32 gigs. This is 16 gigs each. So I think that was just a single memory module that I showed you, and we need two of those. Now, it's like any other laptop RAM module here. Take this out. Let's go back over to our close-up camera. Here we go. And we just pop the lower one in first. like that. There's 16 gigs of RAM. There's another 16 gigs of RAM for a total of 32. It's that easy. We've got two M.2 slots here for our NVMe, but they don't have any heat sinks on them. So if you're going to put a Gen 4 NVMe in here, I would suggest getting an NVMe drive, if it's Gen 4, that comes with a heatsink on it already. Or you could add your own heatsink. Most modern day motherboards sold by the big manufacturers will include heatsinks, but again, they also sell very inexpensive motherboards. And when I say they, I mean MSI, ASRock, Asus, Gigabyte, that don't have the heatsinks, and that's one of the ways they get the price down. So here, oh, it looks like I've already opened this. This is the Samsung 980 Pro. This is just a 1 terabyte model. This will do 7,000 megabytes per second on the read speed. It's no slouch. Here's our drive with the heatsink on it. It doesn't matter which of these slots you want to use first. This one says SSD 1 right underneath, and this one says SSD 2. We can just slide that in there. And then there should be a screw. And I want to guess that's in the motherboard box here. Yeah, there's some M.2s. All three M.2 screws are in one bag. Not like the big manufacturers of motherboards that like to give you one screw per bag, right? This is one bag. This makes so much more sense. And if I dump this out, you know, we've got the washers and nuts for the, just dump it all out here. All of these brass fittings, these would go on your antennas. Now, no antennas are included. These are just the wires that go from the M.2, if you were to use one, to the back of the I/O shield, so that you have these fittings, and that these washers then, right, you probably put a washer behind here, I would guess, and then you've got a locking washer, right, like so. Right, that fits through the I/O shield, and then you just have the brass nut that goes on the end, and then you do the same thing to the other one. I might have these washers in the wrong order, but I think that washer goes on the back. I'm not sure. Could have it backwards. But this will make less of a mess if I just keep these all together. Okay. And then we have three little screws left, and those are our M.2 screws, which I can just go ahead and place in the board now so I don't lose them. And I have a little, where's my JIS driver at? It's around here somewhere. What'd I do with it? Come back from vacation, I can't find anything. It's right in front of me. Of course it is. Yeah, that fits perfectly right on the end of my little JIS number 1. And what I'm going to do here, give me these other two. Oh, and it looks like, oops. They gave us, for some reason, they gave us an extra nut. And then this little plastic cover, if you've ever opened up a laptop or anything, you've noticed that where the antennas plug into your M.2 card, there'll be a cover that goes over them. And that's what this cover is for. And then sometimes they have a piece of tape that holds that down. It's nice that they include all that. Oh, and they gave us, wait a minute, maybe that's not extra. Maybe it just, I didn't tighten it down is what happened. Okay, let me do that again because it came off and I didn't realize. So they're not extra, they just fell off. All right, so anyway, that is optional if you want to use it. It's nice that they include these because what I've seen happen is you have to go online and order these and you're going to end up with cable that's way too long. So that can go back in there. That can go back in there. That can go back in there. And if we decide to add an M.2 drive, which M.2 Wi-Fi, which I do have around here, by the way, we'll just keep it all in here for now. And of course, there's the I/O shield. And the I/O shield is painted black. So even if you get a silver case or a white case or a black case, I think that just looks better overall than the cheap silver stuff. All right, let me put the board back up here. And I'm just going to lock down this M.2 drive. And then I want to put the other M2 screws in the board so I don't lose them. This is particularly important if you're selling computers to customers. If you give them a bag separately from the motherboard, they will lose that bag every single time. So what I do is I just go ahead and put the screws in where they go. And if a customer were to reach out to me in a year or 2 or 3 or 4 and say, I want to add another drive, I don't have to go through the whole routine of, do you have the bag? What bag? The bag with the screws. What screws? The screws I gave you when you sold this. You didn't give me a bag of screws. You sold it. All right. So anyway, that's why I do that. Okay. Okay. So that takes care of our storage and our RAM. Finally, I needed a cooler and I wanted something low profile, and I went with a brand. I'm not a big fan of this brand, upHere. But when we're looking at something that doesn't have to have really high performance, and we need something that's like a pancake style cooler, this brand offered a deal I couldn't say no to. So let me jump back over here. And if we go to this link, is it this one? That's our Samsung 980 with the heatsink right there that we're using. $82. And this is a cooler. There's no RGB. They do sell an RGB version of it for $3 more, but it's all black. It's a pancake style cooler, and it's compatible with all of these Intel and AMD sockets. Plus they have a $6 off coupon, as you can see here. And it was available to be shipped to me overnight. I literally ordered this last night, and it arrived prior to showtime today. Now, they say the TDP on this cooler is 180 watts. upHere is really out there when it comes to estimating the TDP of their coolers. But it should be just fine for this build. We shouldn't get anywhere near that anyway. And that should keep us in a really low profile, because the case I want to use on this is a really small micro ATX silver metal case with no RGB and no window. And you'll see that when it comes in. It'll be a couple of weeks before we get it. All right, let me jump back over to camera 1. There we go. And let's see. Oh, they're giving us a little screwdriver right there on top. Look at that. Look, maybe things have gotten better, right? Because that Allseye cooler, not Allseye, it's a different company. The upHere cooler, the one that I bought was ridiculous and stupid. And I knew that when I bought it. And, you know, as far as a cooler goes, it's fine on a lower end, you know, i3, you know, type of system, Ryzen 3. We needed something better than that. Also, we didn't need all the glitzy glitter pickles. What does the glitter do for the pickle? Nothing. It just glittered. Well, the upHere cooler we bought was like this double wheel design that had red LEDs on both sides. It was just stupid. And then when you took all the plastic shrouding off of it, it was a little tiny tower cooler. It's like when you get a cat wet and then you find out your big fluffy cat is really just a stick figure. It was all an illusion. But this one I'm hoping is a bit more honest with what it is and what to expect from it, and a really good aggressive price point. So you have a very large cooler here. Make sure that hopefully that's going to fit okay. It's going to look good on there. Anything else in this box? Nothing else. Chuck that right over there. So I'm hoping this is the right answer for us. You could see they've got tape over the bottom of the heatsink here, and that's to keep this free of any debris or materials or oils from your skin. And we will have to apply our own thermal compound. Some coolers come with compound pre-applied. Now, with regards to, you know, are we going to, you see all the heat pipes here, but there's no heat pipes on the other side. I don't know if that means it makes sense to go one direction or another. We'll pull out the documentation and see, but just to give you again a close-up here, we'll run back over to close-up camera, and I can show you kind of a funky design. Now, what's nice about this, supposedly, which I don't quite understand. You're supposed to be able to attach this heatsink to your CPU without having to remove the fan to tighten the screws, but how the heck are you supposed to tighten those screws? I don't know yet. Oh, wait a minute. Those aren't screws. That's what the screws, it screws in from the other side. Well, we're going to figure out how that works. But supposedly, the way it's promoted on Amazon is it's very easy to attach this. That on a lot of these style of coolers, you have to come in from the top and screw them down. And that means taking the fan off. But this one, it looks like perhaps a bracket, if I had to guess, is attaching and the bracket extends so that you're on the outside edges of the cooler. I don't know. I'm just using my imagination because I have never worked with this, and I've only used this brand once before. And then we have the bag of included parts, which is going to have our documentation. We've got a bracket for Intel socket. It says Intel socket right on the bag. We have a bag here that says AMD socket. This is going to throw a lot of you off because we have an AMD chip, but it's an Intel. It's not an Intel socket, but it's designed for an Intel cooler. So we are going to use the Intel socket, not the AMD socket. And then we've got a metal something that goes somewhere. I think that must go in the Intel bag. It must have come out. Yeah, it's open. So that's supposed to go in there. These standoffs say they're for socket 2011 and X99 chipsets. Now, why in the world you would put a cooler like this on such an expensive chip that's going to run very hot, it, to me, is madness. I would not recommend that. But the bottom line is we will not use these two bags. And then they give us a little spatula for spreading our thermal compound, which I will not use. And they give us some thermal compound. Now, as memory recalls, the last time we got thermal compound from this company, it was dry and crusty right out of the tube. So I still have a little PTSD from that. I may not even try this. We have plenty of other tubes of thermal compound. Lots and lots of it, which this is all left over from Scythe Mugen installs, and I think I just prefer to use that. So all I need is this. I don't think I'm going to use this driver, although this might be good for the little M.2 screws. But I don't think I'm going to use the driver. I don't think I'm going to use this compound. I'm definitely not using the spatula, and we don't need these parts. This is all extra parts, and we'll just get rid of them. They're gone. This is our documentation. This is the H85. This is the model. And again, links for everything are in the video notes below the video. Now, it does tell us on the Intel side of things that when we put the bracket on the back to adjust for socket 1700, which is what this is spaced out for, the little clips on the end, they move out and in. They have three positions: fully out, fully in, and in the middle. And socket 1700 is the middle position. So we will adjust these little plastic clips to be in the middle position. That's super easy. And we'll attach the cooler. Now, before I go any further, because I've not been paying attention to the chat room, let me jump into the chat here real quick and see what you guys have to say. If I've missed any of your comments from earlier, please repost your question or your comment so I can see it and address it if that's what you'd like me to do. Let's see. Scroll up. Tim Davern renews membership, now a member for 31 months. He says, cheers to 2025 and all you plan to show this community. Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be a fun and innovative year, not a lot of the same old, same old. That's my hope. We'll see what the manufacturers have in store for us this year. Lou Greenia joins us from Vermont, says hello. Garfield Rupe, Robert Kajina joining us from Slovenia. Dustin Fuller joins us and says hello. There's Ikaranus joining us. Ikaranus says, with all the room on this board, you think they could have provided standard desktop RAM? Well, that's where you get into this AliExpress kludgy engineering stuff that shouldn't be happening. Essentially, if you're running a laptop CPU, it should be common sense to use laptop RAM. Right? Low power CPU, low power RAM. If you want to use a desktop CPU, you should not be using laptop RAM. You should be using desktop RAM. There are technical reasons for this, mainly because of power, but also generally speaking, when we're dealing with laptop or mobile CPUs or chips, usually heat and space are your first and foremost concern. I would be concerned personally, especially from a brand as reputable as Minisforum, to provide us such a kludge. Now, the cooler being an Intel socketed cooler used with an AMD mobile chip is weird, but it's not the kind of kludge that involves power and memory timings, which are critical to a system. So even though there are manufacturers that have converted and done this, a lot of those are very shady. They're not supported under any sort of standard. And it may work at first, but it may not be very usable over time. That being said, you wouldn't see 4 memory sockets on this because it's pretty rare you'll ever see a mobile CPU that would support that. So understand that if you're going to use a mobile chip on a desktop motherboard, that in and of itself is a kludge. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all kludges are bad. Like I said, mixing and matching an AMD cooler with an Intel chip, or the effects of the cooler and how it mounts are inconsequential. Especially when we talk about these mobile chips, they're nowhere near as finicky because they don't run at higher voltages and they don't generate that much heat to begin with. So that's, give or take, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But if you're using mobile parts, and in particular, using mobile CPU, should be paired with mobile RAM. And you should not be using a desktop CPU with mobile RAM, and you should not be using a mobile CPU with desktop RAM. Again, RAM is very, very critical in timings, and there's going to be a cost of performance for you to do that. So while you might think it's more convenient, it comes at a cost of reliability and performance because of the compatibility issues you run into with the voltages, and it's a big mess. So not that it can't be done, it just, in my opinion, shouldn't be, and I think Minisforum made the right decision here. This is how I would have done it from an engineering standpoint. That's why I say I'm excited about this board, because it looks like they've already thought of all this. It's not random. It's not like you really had a choice. You either do it right or you do it wrong. That's pretty much it. So let's see. Scrolling through the chat here. Michael Lavelle joins us. Welcome in, Michael. Elijah 52 Dickens, Samuel Kowalski, all saying hello. Nick Caffrey says, my secondary external backup disk is plugged in 24/7. My primary is plugged in for 2 hours a week. Is that a bad idea? Generally speaking, when it comes to external drives, they are not meant to be plugged in 24/7 because they don't have active cooling. Also, if you were to be infected with a virus or suffer a power spike, like in your household, if there was a power outage, a power spike, a storm, it would in theory damage everything connected to the board. So because you have 2 backups, you're risking losing one of your backups. by keeping it plugged in where it's not getting active cooling. You're losing your USB port, which means you're also stealing from performance from other USB devices. For me personally, I would say if you were my customer, don't do that. It's not intended to be used 24/7. And you could say, but I've been using it 24/7 and it hasn't been a problem. And I go, well, it sounds like you've already answered a question and you weren't really interested in my answer. So I can't predict what your response is, but I've dealt with this question over and over again, and it seems like the people that are going to do it are going to do it, and it doesn't matter what I say. I will say, I don't do that. I don't recommend it. And, you know, it's your equipment to use as you want, but I have other uses for my USB ports that are more important to me other than just leaving a backup drive connected all the time. There are scenarios, there are always exceptions where a client may be in a situation that we want to leave a backup drive connected at all times so I can access it remotely. But then also that backup drive gets swapped out and traded out with with one that's taken out of the building in case of fire, theft, or flood. So there are exceptions to that. But overall, if it can be avoided, I would avoid it. But if everything's working for you, don't fix it if it ain't broke. Raul says, I bought some of those laptop desktop motherboards, 50% success rate, returns on AliExpress is nightmarish. Yeah, agreed. You definitely don't. If you want reassurance with regards to customer service and returns, you don't want to be buying from Temu or AliExpress. Just like you wouldn't buy from a garage sale and expect any warranty. It's as is, cash and carry, it's yours now, have a nice life. And you're trading that for a lower price. What Minisforum is offering here includes Minisforum support, and the fact that you can order it from Amazon as well means you can get that super fast shipping and the 30-day returns for peace of mind. Chances are, when it comes to stuff like this, if you're fine the first 30 days, you're probably going to be fine as far as warranty goes for the lifetime of the unit. But if you spill something on it, you drop it, if there's a big power spike that happens at your house, the damage, it's not warranty related stuff. So it's good to know that if you ever need to wipe the drive and reinstall it and get drivers, you can go to Minisforum and download those. Versus, again, AliExpress or Temu or one of these sites, you're sort of on your own to figure it out. If you're somebody who wants to go to the junkyard and buy pieces to build a car, and you can do it cheaper because you've got all the time in the world and you know what you're doing and you'll enjoy that, save your money. If you're somebody who doesn't have much time or doesn't know how to do that, expect to spend a little bit more so that if you need help along the way or you have problems along the way, you've got that support system. But somebody has to pay for that. They're not giving you the support and the discounted price that you're going to see at these, you know, AliExpress type sites. If we can subtract the cost of support from the cost of the product, you could be buying Dell computers and HP computers a lot cheaper. I'm just saying, you buy those because you have peace of mind that the company is somebody you know how to call them. Even if you don't like the support, there's a phone number you can call. There's a website you can go to. In a lot of cases, the stuff sold on AliExpress, there is none of that. You're literally on your own, no differently than if you bought it at a garage sale. So just prepare accordingly. If you want that peace of mind or insurance, insurance isn't free and it will be built onto the cost. If you don't want the insurance, such as places like AliExpress and Temu, it is removed from the cost. You're buying less and you're getting less and you're paying less in the case of AliExpress and Temu. And if it's not something you're going to need anyway, such as the support, if you're somebody who never needs support, you're on your own, you're happy with it, save the money. But if you're like the vast majority of people and you want some assurance in your purchase, expect to pay a little bit more for that insurance for your assurance. That's just how the world works. The money's coming from somewhere either way, whether you provide it yourself or you want them to provide it for you. So I just think it's important that we have realistic expectations and understanding what we're buying, because it seems like many people on the internet don't. And, you know, there is a cost involved with customer service and support. And if you've ever done that for a living, you'll understand it's expensive. All right, Ian Gooch with a 10-pound super chat says, here's a few pounds for your coffers. Well, cheers, Ian. Thank you so much for that, my friend. Gregory Howard renews membership, now a member for 16 months. He says, hello, Carey and Mara and chat. Welcome in, Gregory. Good to see you. Gregory has the Segotech Slath system that we republished while we were away. That is a really neat system. Or is it a coffee maker? Patrick Manny renews membership, now a member for 32 months. He says, does anybody need any snow? I'd have way too much. You can send it over here. And California, I'm sure they could use it too. Essential Working Too Hard, now a member for 16 months, says Happy New Year. Thank you. Happy New Year to you, to all of you, of course. Hope this is going to be a great year. Jason H88 with a $20 super chat says, hey, Carey and Mara, good to see you. We made it safely back from California. It's looking scary around LA. That's, if you've ever been to LA, it's another day in LA. They have all kinds of fires all the time and disasters happen all the time. It's overcrowded. It's another day in LA. I realize this is a tragedy, but the sad part is these tragedies like this keep occurring over and over and over again in California. Whether it's LA or Northern California, our friend Kelly Stewart is in Northern California. They're always having something going on there twice a year. There's a flood, there's a fire, there's this, there's that. I think it's just because it's overpopulated and it's just very difficult to control. That's my estimation. And so long as it maintains this level of crowdedness, I do believe this is just going to be standard. Or, what was it? Some town of, was it Pleasantville, a couple of years ago, same exact thing. Just look at the news. Don't look at today's news. Look at the news regarding fires in California over the last 10 years. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And it doesn't, I'm not making light of the tragedy, but we shouldn't be surprised by it anymore. That's my opinion of it. And if you go there, prepare accordingly. And Jason H88 renews membership, now a member for 31 months. He goes, 31 months, where has the time gone? I'd like to know. If you find it, let me know, because I've been looking all over. I don't know where it's going. Robert Jones joins us and says hello. Gregory with a question in the chat said, I have an MSI 4080. It needs a 4 PCIe power plug. Oh, 4-pin. But I only have 3. It works fine. I'm afraid to play games, so it worked with only 3. Well, what did MSI say when you asked them? I'm kind of curious what their response would be. I mean, presumably this is a new card that you purchased, a 4080. It must be brand new for you if you've never hooked up these connectors before. And I would presume you paid a lot of money for it. I would presume MSI made the money from it. And I would presume that if you had questions, the first one you would ask is the person you gave your money to. It's, the manufacturer, to see what they have to say. Because I don't know the answer to your question. And if it were me, I'd be asking the manufacturer, not some random person online. Especially for something that expensive. Okay, so I don't see any other questions here. So let me see how we can mount this cooler. It should be pretty easy. I'm going to use the documentation on this one because this one's a weird one, but it's supposed to be super easy. First things first, we're going to just dump all these parts out onto the desk. Bracket, bracket, screws and spacers. Now there is some double-sided tape on the back of this, what do they call this piece? It doesn't even say. Well, this rear plate, this mounting plate, that's what I'm going to call it. You can peel this tape off and stick it to the back of the board. I'm kind of reluctant to do that because this can be very difficult to remove. But I think this cooler's not going anywhere else. I think we're okay. And we need these plastic clips to be in the socket 1700. which I'm thinking is one up from the bottom, which looks like that's how it came out of the bag. Looks like it was already in the socket 1700 position. And then it shouldn't matter which way we align this. It should go in any direction we, with Intel anyway. Maybe not. Let me make sure we're still one up from the bottom. There's one up. One up from the bottom. Oh, I don't think you count the first one. I think we got to go two up from the bottom because this is moving one extra position. That's really weird. It clicks in 3 different places. It should only be... Oh, I see. It even lines up where it says 1700. To me, it should have 1 fewer click. It's like it's got 4 positions when it should only be 3. I don't know why, but that would probably explain why it didn't line up. And again, it shouldn't really matter how you put that on there. And if we just push it back, the sticky tape will attach to the metal frame. Which it's not doing. And it doesn't matter what orientation we place this on. But I can tell you, the reason why it's not sitting flush is because this is not designed to go onto a motherboard like this. Again, this is a little bit of a kludge, I would call that. So removing that tape did nothing to help me. Well, on a regular motherboard, it would attach to that. This part, this metal part here, on an Intel desktop motherboard that this is designed to go on, this piece is much thicker and taller. And this bracket with the sticker does not actually contact that metal frame underneath. I don't know how well you can see that. We can go to the close-up camera. That's an interesting little piece of trivia there, that there is a space. And that's okay. All the pressure is going to be on the mount points. It doesn't necessarily have to be pressure here in the center. But just a bit of a surprise there. Now, if I set this down, the good thing about that scenario is I don't have to worry about holding that bracket in place because it does stick out a bit further. When I set the motherboard down, the motherboard sits on that plastic bracket instead of sitting on the board around it, which results in the bracket falling out, which is why there's tape. But we don't need the tape, as it turns out, with this kind of a kludge of a design using the Intel cooler on the AMD chip. So now that we've got that installed, the next thing we want is, I guess, these little plastic standoffs or whatever they're going to call these. And there's a wider hole on the bottom of one side of this and a narrower hole on the other side. And so I think this only goes on one way. No, it goes on either way. That's super loose, so that's not going to work for me. It must go on with the narrow side down. And we'll place these with the narrow side down. Because that's the way it looks like it wants to go. And then it wants us to put these brackets on. And if you notice, the screw is not entirely centered. It's closer to one edge, and you want that edge on the outside. You don't want to turn this around where that screw is facing the CPU, closer to the CPU. You want it further away. And it looks like that can go on either this way, or it looks like it could equally go on this way. And again, you can't do this with AMD CPUs. This is normally something that's done only with with Intel because it's perfectly square versus rectangular. Now, if this board were like any other motherboard, then it would go in with this side up in a tower machine. I just dropped my bracket. It would go up this way, meaning that the CPU writing would all be down like this. So if we want to follow the directions literally, which I don't think are required, but if we build this following the same rules that we do on every other build, then where the PCIe slot is the bottom of the board, and the writing would be going this way, even though Minisforum has the writing, they're showing it sideways. But clearly, for the video card to go in and for the I/O shield, this is going to be the back of the case. So we're still going to follow that same rule of orientation. And based on that, in looking at the diagrams following that standard orientation, then it instructs us, if we're following the instructions as shown, to put these brackets on across the top and bottom of the chip instead of along the sides. That's what they're showing. And again, I don't think it much matters either way on this socket. On other sockets it might. Then it wants us to use these enclosed screws to go through. Well, that is a little nerve-wracking because it is not clear to me why one side of that standoff is wider than the other, because either way it seems like it's loose. And I don't know why. Like, usually it's pretty obvious, but it is definitely not obvious to me in this case. And what I'm going to do, because these are just brackets, I'll just grab my electric driver here right quick. Will the tip fit? Yeah. And let's just secure these down real quick. Wow, those go in a long way. Let's try that. Now on the brackets, you'll see there's a wider slot and a narrower slot. We want to go in onto the wide one for socket 1700. And normally I would not use an electric driver during a cooler install, but there's nothing ordinary about this. See, instinctively I want to put that wide side down, but that would just, yeah, that's just not going to work that way. What a very strange design. And again, when it comes to this company, I'm putting this bracket on backwards, Carey. There is a little lip on the bracket itself. I don't know how well you can see that. And that lip should be your outer edge. So we want to turn it around. Well, there's a lip on both sides. This lip down here and this lip up here. The one up here is wider. It's a bit longer than the lip down here. Does that matter? I just don't know. And that's one of the problems I had with this brand, was their instructions were, and even their installation process was very foreign to me. It didn't really make any logical sense. And it's all starting to come back to me now. I am now remembering what I didn't like. However, and again, I can't stress enough, on this particular build configuration, and that it's so unique, that really probably won't matter much. So here's the question I have. If we put this down here, it would go on like this. You know, we'll say we put some thermal compound on it. You can see just how much of that heat spreader is not going to be covered by this. Pretty much the copper area of the heat spreader is what we're looking for main heat contact. And so we're not going to put thermal compound on this because we don't know how this is going to line up. So instead, we would add thermal compound to this. We'll do the whole square after we take the plastic off. And we've got to figure out our orientation. If our power connector is coming out here and our CPU fan is over here, yeah, this orientation makes sense because then our CPU fan will go on right there. So that may also help you decide which way to put these brackets on. Now, my question is, how am I supposed to tighten this onto the screws that are sticking up? Like, let's just say we put thermal compound on it. I'm just thinking ahead, like, now how do I tighten that down? That's the part I don't understand. The directions show using that screwdriver, which I put down here. This little, maybe that's why they've enclosed this. Oh, wow. Okay. That's why they said you don't have to remove the fan. Let me go back to camera 1 here right quick. And I'll show you. On this cooler, underneath the fan and through the heatsink, there are holes. And you have to look very carefully to see them. You might have to spin the fan to see them. But they're directly above these screws. So if you look where the screw is that we have to tighten down, and we look into the heat sink or the radiator here. Hold on, let me find it. It's a very small hole. It appears to be right there. And that will bring the screwdriver through so that we can tighten that. That is okay. I mean, I guess that'll work, but don't lose the screwdriver because that is a tight fit. Just trying to do this in a mirrored camera is a little bit difficult. There's not a lot of play here, but yeah, you can see I've got it there. And then on the other side, my hand is covering it. There will be another hole, right? Just above that screw. I'd have to turn the blade to see it. That one is, let's see, I don't know which one I did before. There's one here, and then directly across from it, it's right next to the CPU support bracket. That is tricky. And of course I don't have it straight on, but yeah. Okay, well that answers that question. That's that's very particular. All right, let's go ahead and peel off this little protective plastic here that keeps our heatsink clean of any debris and oils from our skin. And where's my gloves? What did I do with them? I think I put them over here. Let's grab a glove. So again, thinking about this logically, we don't want to put thermal compound on this part because we simply don't know how much of this is going to make contact with the bottom here. This is very unusual. I almost never place thermal compound on the cooler itself, but this would be a situation where this makes more sense. Normally we're covering just the processor itself instead of the entire base of the cooler. But the entire base of this cooler will hit the entire base of this heat spreader, and there will be a lot of this heat spreader that will not be covered. I mean, just look at the size difference between the two. But that's okay, that's the way it's intended. This is a very small chip. It's a mobile CPU. It's not that big, and the heat spreader is much larger than what needs to be in order for it to fit a socket 1700 Intel. You can understand how that's a little bit kludgy, but it shouldn't be in a bad way. Like, there shouldn't be any consequence to it other than the install's a little funky. But then again, the whole motherboard's a little funky. So one goes hand in hand with the other when you think about it. And funky doesn't mean bad. In this case, I'm referring to funky as different. It's sort of breaking the mold of what's normal or common. And it should be 100% just as reliable as any other similar CPU, equipped laptop or mini PC. And quite often, we don't even know the cooling solutions those manufacturers choose, which could be identical to this in a lot of ways for all we know. Okay, so with that on there, and again, we'll have the CPU fan power cable coming out this way. We'll rest that right on top. One there. One there. Find the hole for the screwdriver to fit into, which is where? Wow, definitely need a flashlight for this. Right there. Oh, now I see it. We'll give that one a couple turns. We'll come over here. There's that one. Am I on it? What am I? Oh, there it's going. It's going. That tightens down. And with a screwdriver this small, you don't have a lot of leverage on it. So that's going to prevent you from over tightening. On the other hand, is this cooler making a solid connection? I think it is. It does appear to be. Let's bring it up to the camera and you guys can have an opinion on that. It is all squished down there on top of the heat spreader. So you can see the silver of the heat spreader and the black of the cooler. And of course, if we put too much thermal compound, you can see how messy that could get if it all squished out. It's a lot of place for thermal grease to run out of there. So applying the right amount is going to be critical if you want to keep it clean. But that entire silver piece you're looking at is the heat spreader on top of the CPU, and then everything that's black is the CPU cooler. So I think it's making contact, but at the end of the day, we just have to see if it's cooling, because if it's running too hot, then we don't have good contact. So we're going to find out. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in the CPU fan right here. I'm not going to worry about any cable management. Let's get the glove out of the way here. And now we can give it power, keyboard, mouse, video, and fire it up for the first time. We can start to install Windows 11 if all goes well. And if everything works well, then we wait for our case to arrive and a small form factor power supply. Not that we have to use it, but I want to keep this as small as possible. And we should have a very unique looking system, unlike anything else on YouTube you've ever seen, and likely ever will see for that matter. I'll shout out again to our friends at Minisforum who are giving us the opportunity to be the first to really do an in-depth review of this motherboard here on YouTube. The competitive nature of this business is a little frustrating sometimes, and I like to work with other content creators, not compete against them. But if we have an opportunity that a manufacturer has allowed us to be first, that's a very flattering thing for a manufacturer to go out of their way for us like that. Okay, let's plug in power. I guess I'm going to need a power switch too, aren't I? Wow, that is a tight fit. Okay, CPU power. I'll go right there. Okay, those clicked into place. I need my keyboard and mouse, which I keep over here. Turn that on, turn this on. And we'll use one of our USB 2 ports right there. I need a power switch, which I have right here. Power. Front panel. So power switch should go right there. And finally, not finally, what am I missing? HDMI. Oh, power to the power supply would probably help too. Power supply is off. So we'll plug power into the power supply. Just like that. We need an HDMI cable. Coming back from vacation, and the cables are not the normal way I keep them because everything was put away. So bear with me here as I reset for our first video since getting back. Okay, video, keyboard, mouse. I'm going to leave the internet unplugged. Power switch, power supply. Let's turn the power on. There's no RGB. There's no indication this board has power, so it's very important if you're going to work on this, you always make sure you unplug it or flip the switch on your power supply, because there's always going to be low voltage running through it otherwise, even when it's in an off state. It has power going through it right now. So you don't want to change any components out while there's power in the board, even when the machine is off, unless power is removed. And you do that either by unplugging the machine or flipping a switch on a power supply if your power supply has one. Otherwise, you can create a short circuit by adding memory or a video card or changing any component on the board when it's plugged in. Now, anything on the back of the I/O, you can change that while it's plugged in. That's fine. It's just on the board itself. And let's see what happens if I hit the power switch. Hey, the fan starts turning. Let's jump over to our input. And right now, you're going to see it says Elgato. That's our capture card. And if we wait patiently, it's going to do what it should be doing is training the RAM that we've installed and just identifying what's in the M.2 slot and adjusting the BIOS accordingly. And then it will reset the machine with the RAM timings and trainings. And we should get a power on self-test or a logo, right? Like the manufacturer Minisforum. See, we just saw the screen blank out. You've got to be patient. This could take up to 3 minutes on a new build. Now, we got into the BIOS, and the reason we went into the BIOS is there's nothing for this machine to boot from. We have not installed an operating system on it. So all it does is takes you into your standard, what is now the new standard Minisforum graphical user interface BIOS, which contains our, BIOS is version 1.0. This is a very early look at this brand new design. The Ryzen 9 7945 with Radeon graphics built in. It recognizes our 32 gig of memory at 5200 megahertz speed. We can go under the advanced section and we can see the trusting computing, which is your TPM module, etc. Go back to CPU configuration and we have PSS support and X mode security. Wait, let me go back to advanced again. Onboard devices, so this does support RAID configuration. If you wanted to use both NVMe slots into a RAID 0 or 1, you could do that, although I highly recommend avoiding that other than for a data drive, because we would not have any other space for a boot drive unless we use the SATA ports. That would be significantly slower. You want your fastest drive to be your boot drive, and you want any sort of RAID array, in my opinion, to be a data drive. So we would need a third NVMe for me to enact that, which I will not do for those reasons. Let's go back again. Under advanced, we have the ACPI setting. So that's all your wake up stuff. And then back to advanced, we have hardware monitor. That's going to tell you your CPU temps, right? Right now it's saying it's at, I don't know what this number means here. This doesn't tell me if it's Fahrenheit or Celsius. Regardless, that is an awfully hot CPU temp, which would suggest to me that the cooler's not sitting well. We're going to keep an eye on that because that's a little worrisome. CPU fan speed, back again to advanced. Network stack configuration, back to advanced. AMD PBS settings, back to advanced. CBS settings, CPU options, and what's the last thing? Overclocking, which I guess you have to accept responsibility for getting in here for any damages you might cause to your board if you choose to pursue any additional performance and, you know, heat, wear and tear, etc., that comes along with that. They make you sort of agree to accept responsibility for any consequences that should occur if you override their engineering settings. But they give you that option. There's boot password, boot options, which we leave all alone, and then save and exit. We haven't changed anything. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to come back over here to camera 1. And I'm going to take my Windows 11 boot media, which I've shown you guys how to make. That right there. Yeah, I just don't know if that's an inefficient cooler, if I've not mounted it correctly. I'm not sure. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll see what happens. And then, you know, the case I want to put this in is really slim. And I'm starting to wonder, the CPU comes off quite a bit taller than I thought it would. And until I get the case, I'm not sure it'll even fit. So I might be changing this out after all. But if the CPU is running hot, then this is coming off regardless. With this kind of a design, it's just hard to know without some experimentation. And we're all here to learn, so let's learn together. I'm noticing one of my CPU power connectors isn't quite on all the way, and this can create problems too. So I'm going to just turn this machine off. We're going to turn off right here at the power supply. And I want to make sure that if these connectors aren't on all the way, then you may not have a good solid connection. And that could give you all kinds of weird blue screens or heat-related problems or arcing, you know, anything could be. I mean, these connectors on the power supply, they fit on there really tight. So let's turn this back on. Now this time when it turns on, it should automatically boot to this Windows 11 setup. Let's go back and see what it does. And then after Windows 11 installs, we can run hardware info and get a more familiar look at what our temps are. Now we're still well below, you know, 100 degrees Celsius, but when we're idling in the BIOS, it shouldn't be that warm. So I'm a little concerned about that. But you'll see this is a very respectably fast system. So we're going to go ahead and do a regular install here. I'm going to say I don't have a product key for right now. We're going to choose Windows 11 Pro because I'm going to buy a Windows 10 Pro key at SCD Keys. We're using our coupon code CAREY for 30% off. It's like $15. And you enter the Windows 10 Pro key into Windows 11 Pro and it will activate it. And it will stay activated and tied to the motherboard indefinitely. So even when the free upgrade ends, as long as you got in before that, you're good to go. So now we're looking for installation media to install Windows on. And you'll see disk 1 is our USB drive. You can tell by the capacity. And this one up here, which is close to 1,000, that's our terabyte drive. And again, it is 1,000 depending on how we do the math, which I've explained before. We'll hit next. And it will now partition, format, and copy over all of the Windows installation files. And it just gives us a confirmation. So I hit install, and we're off to the races. So no surprises yet. I do have some concern about the heat. But again, Minisforum doesn't really advise you to what cooler you're going to use other than using a Socket 1700 cooler, which we've done. But clearly, some Socket 1700 coolers are better than others. And for all I know, I may not have mounted this correctly. So it maybe the brackets needed to go up and down instead of left and right. Anything's possible. It shouldn't matter since an Intel socket is 100% square. It's not rectangular. At least the mounting points are for the brackets for the words for the cooler. The mount points on the cooler are perfectly square, as I've demonstrated. On AMD, they are not. That means on an AMD cooler, you can only install it vertically, not horizontally. An Intel cooler can go on vertically or horizontally or upside down, right? Either direction, left or right. Up can be down, down can be up, left can be right, right can be left. On an AMD cooler, you can only invert it up and down. It does not install left to right or right to left. So not that it matters, but there is a difference. Now I want you to keep in mind, this is a Ryzen 9. This is not a Ryzen 3 or Ryzen 5. This is not a budget build in the sense of what we normally define that. This is a budget build when it comes to high performance. So when we define high performance, though, that's open to your interpretation. For some of you, you'll turn your nose up to anything that isn't sucking 300 watts out of the wall. For the rest of us, though, we might define high performance in comparison to the amount of wattage it's using. In such a case, you're running some of the highest performance possible in today's technology with the lowest amount of power possible, which is a very unique combination that in and of itself makes the system more desirable for people who understand that value, and also reduces the overall cost, right? Because the enthusiasts that make YouTube channels, and they are enthusiasts, there's a reason why most of you don't have YouTube channels. You're not as much of an enthusiast as you might think you are. When you're reaching a point that you are so passionate for the technology that you are going to put yourself up for public scrutiny and take the time and investment to put out YouTube videos, that is an enthusiast activity. That's somebody who's truly passionate about what they're doing. And those truly passionate people, more often than not, want more power. Power, power, power. It's not about necessarily saving money, although there are YouTube channels that focus on that. The vast majority of tech content is all about how much performance can we get, and the money is secondary, as though we all have so much money that we can just burn through it to get 10% more performance. That does not represent the majority of computer owners, in the sense that the majority of computer owners don't make YouTube videos, okay? So I'm trying to bridge those two differences together, because there's plenty of extremism in the tech side of YouTube, more of it than anything else. When it comes to being well-grounded, ironically, those channels are few and far between, and we're trying to offer you the best of both worlds. What does the average consumer look for? What sort of budget do they have? What sort of performance are they expecting? They're not running benchmarks to see how fast their frames per second are. They're using the computer to do something, to actually do some work or to play a game. And if that game doesn't play right, then I'm going to get a call. If the frames per second don't feel right, they're not necessarily, they can't tell me what the frames per second are. They don't know. They just go, hey, the game's laggy, or it's jittery, or it's not smooth. That's how a normal person deals with a computer. When I say normal, I mean the common population and the vast majority of computer owners. It's only on the internet where the enthusiasts gather, where the enthusiasts share information, and other people gather that information, as it's really your only source of information online is primarily enthusiast level, which is like hanging out with a bunch of doctors to learn about your, I don't know, skin rash. Like, they're going to be talking so over the top about medications and experimental treatments that would be of a scientific interest, but not necessarily of the interest of the average person, for them to even be able to get the items the doctors are talking about, because they may not be approved for FDA, or they might be promising in the scientific studies. And you get into all this clinical academia, when really what you want is practical knowledge that you can use today that's within your reach. And I think that's the best example I can give you of the disconnect between the enthusiasts and the viewers. If a viewer was an enthusiast, the viewer would be a content creator. Not that you can't do both. It's just hard to find the time. All right, so now it's waiting on me to just make a few decisions here. So United States and US. Skip. Let's see, I don't have internet right now because we've not plugged it in. And we'll put the word user. I need to go full screen on this. I can barely see it. Bear with me for a second. Ah, now I see it the way you guys at home see it. That's much better. I'll leave the password blank so it boots right to the desktop. And I turn off everything but location data. These are my personal preferences, of course. You're free to make your choices. That's what the choices are there for. Each individual can decide for themselves. Now, this finishes up our our installation process of Windows 11, at which point we're going to need to install some drivers, Windows updates, and of course we can check our temps. The very fact that we've not blue screened or had any issues with our Windows 11 install means we're not having any heat problems. I just have some heat concerns based on what I saw in the BIOS. I may not be reading the BIOS correctly. This cooler may not be good enough. This cooler may not be installed correctly. We have a lot of could-bes. But what we know for a fact is it's not creating any problems. So there's nothing to fix here, at least not yet. Now, if we start getting blue screen crashes, they would likely be because of what I would think is the heat, because I see these numbers that are big. But if you're not experiencing a problem other than what exists in your head, then the problem is in your head. Okay? I don't know how else to explain this, but we have a lot of anxiety in the world today. Fear is clickable and generates money. And the money is why people will write articles and make videos, and they will do that very commonly. The news media does this every single day. They want you to be scared of something, so you have to tune in. They can sell advertising and make money to keep you scared. But are you scared of the ghosts, or are you scared of something that actually exists in your life, not in somebody else's, in your personal life? Are you having an experience you need help with? If so, we can help you. But if your fears are based on what other people do, then it's up to them to solve them, not you. I just would like to see people go through life a little more relaxed with a little less anxiety than what's absolutely necessary. And the world today is providing so much information that probably 90% of that information you're receiving from media does not apply to you. But, you know, you do you. I don't have the tolerance or the bandwidth for dealing with that much stress, and I can't wake up every day with that much anxiety. Everybody in the world's always had problems. The only difference is the world's gotten smaller with regards to information. We used to only know what was going on in our town. Now we know what's going on in little towns all over the world, and it can make life seem very scary when in fact your life is just fine and your town is just fine. All right, let's go to our device manager, or first of all, in our system properties, you can see we've got, you know, everything's correct here. 24H2, Windows installed without a problem, 32 gigs of RAM, blah, blah, blah. Let me close this out, right click on the start button. We're gonna go to device manager. Right there. And what are we missing? Oh, we have a couple little drivers here. That's likely gonna come from, if I had to guess, the AMD Adrenalin software. So let's do that first and see if anything remains. That's your basic, any AMD system you're reinstalling. After a Windows install, before you go to the manufacturer looking for drivers, do the easy thing first, which is we're going to just type in AMD Adrenalin, if I can type it correctly. And you know what? We have to be connected to the internet first. So I'm going to reach down here on the floor and find my Ethernet cable. And I'm going to plug Ethernet in, and you watch that bottom right corner of the screen where the globe is, and we should see that turn into a little monitor. It's flashing, which means it's obtaining an IP address. And then it'll go solid here. Bingo, now we're online. Now the website loads, our search results load. We want that first link. We're going to download the software, even though what you're looking for is a driver. AMD's calling it software with the drivers embedded in the software. But when you click on software, it's calling it drivers. So AMD can't make up their mind. Anyway, so we're going to download the driver software or the software drivers. I would like some consistency, AMD. I mean, are you not big enough yet? All right, we're going to go ahead and install this right quick. And then it'll require a reboot when we're done. And then we'll go back in the device manager and we'll see if there's anything remaining. If so, we can go to Minisforum support for that. If not, then that means we are not tied to the manufacturer's support for drivers, which is preferred. Because the question is, well, what happens if the company goes out of business, right? That's the argument. I don't think Minisforum is going anywhere, but you never know. So if you can remain independent, also back up your own drivers. We've got a video that shows you how to do that without using any third-party software. And then that way you always have your drivers. So again, you can be self-reliant and not depend on the manufacturer for help, regardless if it's Dell or HP or Minisforum. You know, having that self-reliance was how I was raised in the 1980s. And it's definitely what I am. I'm all about that whole independence, freedom and independence to do as I wish, not as I'm being dictated to or limited to by anybody else's limitations other than my own. I prefer to be as limitation free as possible and to have the freedoms to do what I want when I want, including if I want those drivers, I don't have to wait for a manufacturer's website that's down for maintenance to come back up. I have my own drivers. I have backups of my own data. I don't have to cry to somebody else for help. I, as much as possible, try to encourage and walk the walk of being self-reliant. That's why I made this channel, is to teach you how to be self-reliant. Now, we all do need help from time to time. There's no harm or shame in asking for help. And I don't want to have you misunderstand my message of self-reliance with discouraging help. That's not it at all. Once you get the help, ideally, you're good from that point forward in that regard. And then if you need help again, it's about something else different. None of us are born with this knowledge. We have to learn it from somebody. And I'm here to share with you my experience as a professional in this industry to keep you self-reliant, so you don't have to pay somebody like me to fix the problems that you could have done yourself if you wanted to, but just didn't know how. I can't make you want to, okay? That's an attitude problem. I can't fix that. But presumably, you're here because you want to learn this. Presumably, I'm showing you things you've never seen or giving you thoughts to consider you hadn't thought of before, so that moving forward, we grow from there, right? So then the things I teach in the future can build on that foundation and allow you to be more and more self-sufficient and understand the reasoning behind decisions that are made and why we only fix problems that have real symptoms that we experience, not from what we read online. Or nobody calls me and asks me for an online, nobody calls me and asks me for on-site support because they heard a friend of theirs on Reddit has a problem. So if you wouldn't do that in real life, why would you do that online? Our installation's complete. Let's restart and we'll check our device manager here in just a minute. But yeah, that's the logic I use, right? This is how business works. Without business, whatever money you're using to watch this video, whether it's the computer or the internet connection, somebody's paying for all this. Whether you're retired and you've got money put away, that's because you worked. Or somebody's paying your bills, that's because they worked. So the whole world evolves around work, and all of this other stuff is a result of the work. The crux of it, where it all starts and what makes it all go around, is the work. That's where the money is in this business. If you want to fix computers for a living, you want to fix it for work. You don't want to fix it for individuals. Fixing computers for individuals is a very tough way to make a dollar. They don't call you often, they don't want to pay you much, and they will expect free support for you to tutor them, which is not support, endlessly. It'll never end. And it can be end up being very resentful and frustrated as a tech. If that's what you want to do, understand what you're doing. It's up to you to fix that. You could avoid that entirely by actually working for regular businesses. Small businesses could be somebody running a little business out of their house. That's still a business, and it's still going to pay you better and treat you better overall and in general to the average consumer. So, well, you might be an average consumer. this is all the more reason for you to be self-empowered and self-reliant. Now, it looks like we just booted in 4K mode here because everything just got super tiny. So I can barely read it. Let me go to my display settings. Holy moly. Let's make these icons bigger. Oh, I can read it now. And we'll go to the Start menu, back into the Device Manager. And let's take a look if there's any issues in the Device Manager now. All solved. Again, fully independent away from the manufacturer. We don't have to go to them for any drivers. Everything is happy. Now, let me jump back over to Camera One right quick. And let's take our Windows 11 installation media out. And let me grab my utilities flash drive, which is going to have what I do with it. That's got my utilities on it, like with hardware info, so we can monitor what our temps are right now. Clearly, they're not a problem. I mean, it's not running too hot, or it would be blue screening and crashing on us. On the other hand, we haven't pushed the system yet. But you know you don't want to push it if you can't even idle. So we're idling fine. Our installation does get a bit resource intensive during processes of the Windows 11 install, and we went through all that fine. So let's go back over here and back over to camera 2, full screen for me. Sometimes I wish I had your monitors at home. The only way I can do that is I have to keep adjusting OBS to go full screen. And when I do that, I can't see the chat and I can't really see what's going on with OBS if I'm in focus, etc. Although in this case, we're at the desktop anyway. Let's go to the Windows Explorer and over to our D drive. D drive. Come on, D drive. And then we want, you know, I always put VLC on here. And Uncle Carey's Windows 10 Optimizer, which we run on Windows 11, just because we can. And then PC testing software, CPU-Z gives us all of our specs. Crystal Disk Mark will give us our drive performance. We should see about 7,000 megs per second on the Samsung 980. And HWI or HW Monitor are two separate applications that monitor heat. I'm going to choose HWI for now. And I think, I mean, we can copy Cinebench over, but I'm not quite sure that's a good idea for this build. But let's see how it's running before I torture the heck out of it. I do have some reservations on this cooler, very nervous about those temps I was seeing in the BIOS. And this is where I say information can be toxic. The system is performing exactly as it should. And what's got me hesitant and anxiety-filled is numbers I saw on the screen that have nothing to do with our experience so far. So because I see those numbers, I'm obsessed with it, which is like, I need to verify, are these numbers what we saw in the BIOS, or were we misinterpreting something? And that level of anxiety, despite having no actual experience of negative heat-related or any other kind of related problems, is completely in my head. It does not apparently exist in reality, but I want verification. My verification is I want to know my reality in my head versus my reality in reality. And too many people, in my opinion, today seem to conflate these two ideas, that what you choose to see in your head is actually what's happening in the world around you. Because what I choose to see in my head is that I have $1 million in my checking account. But when I actually check my checking account in reality, there's not $1 million in it. And I can walk around and behave and act like I have $1 million, but there isn't $1 million that I have. So to me, as a logical person, that is no way to go through life. That is referred to as a delusion. And the problem with delusion is most people that are delusional are completely unaware they are delusional. So I do these self-checks, okay? I test constantly. Is this real or is this in my imagination? I do this every day, all the time. It can be very difficult in modern society with VR, or not VR, AI. Is what I'm watching real? Is what I'm experiencing real? Am I asleep right now or am I awake? You know, that's why they say, pinch me. right? Because in dreams, you don't usually feel pain or cold. So the ability to be, not that we're self-aware in our dreams, but that's the trick of it, right? Am I dreaming right now, or is this reality? Is this the edge of madness? How do I keep testing to make sure I'm not asleep right now, or that what I'm imagining doesn't actually exist? And we do that through verification, scientific verification. So what I'm looking at when I'm looking at these core CPU temps is I want to see what temps we have that are current minimum, just like we do on any other build. So when we were in the BIOS and we saw 75, what the heck was that all about? I don't even know. Like I said, it didn't say if it was Celsius or Fahrenheit. I don't know. So if we look at our cores, right underneath here, it says core temperatures. These are fantastic temperatures. These are wonderful. I mean, we're looking at 30 degrees here. So far, our peak was at, what? 63.7 was our max so far. And we haven't been pushing the system, but that's a far cry from just being in a BIOS at 75. That's why the information was toxic and why it's important to test and verify, test and verify, test and verify. Only until you've tested and verified can you be sure either way. Do not allow your imagination to define your reality. At least not if you're working for a living, not if people are counting on you. Now, let me go over here to Crystal Dismark, and let's take a look at the speed at which our Samsung SSD is running. We should be getting about 7,000 out of it, so let's find out what it's going to do right now. And while that's running, let me take a quick look over in the chat and see what you guys are talking about. All right, 6,700, and that number will still probably go up a little bit here as it continues to test. Hey, there's Mitch Morrison joining us. Good to see you, Mitch. Peter, joining us from the Netherlands, contributes €2. He says, I've learned a lot from you, Carey. Thanks for that. Well, right on. Well, thanks for hanging out with us and supporting the channel, Peter. We're glad to have you here. Chris Johnson renewed membership. Now he's a member for 32 months. That is awesome. Thank you, Chris. He says, good to see you, everyone. Well, we're happy to see you too, Chris. Barry Klein jumps in and says, hello. Welcome back, Barry. David Graham and William Denton joining us, and Phil Stodd all say hello. There's Jim KJ3N. Right on. Essential Working Too Hard thinks I need a vacation that's much longer. Like a coffin. That's the ultimate vacation. I'll finally get the rest I need. I will have mastered it. Let's see, what else? Alice Dean says hello from the UK. Cheers, Alice. Welcome in. I got to say it like they say it in the UK. All right, Alice. Numbers are looking good on the SSD. So far, so good. System is quiet. Everything's running like it should. I just hope this will fit in the case I ordered. I am worried. This cooler may be a little too tall. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And I ordered the case from Amazon. I'm going to keep that a surprise for right now. But if need be, we can always send it back. We have 30 days for returns from Amazon. Or we could use it on something else entirely. It's a case manufacturer I've never worked with before, and it's a case design I've never seen before. So we're going to be in for some surprises either way. For better or for worse, we're going to figure it out. Now, while we're waiting for the test to complete, if you have any questions for me, comments, suggestions, this is the time to jump into our chat room. We'd love to hear from you. We also have our email address. You can reach out to us here on the channel anytime by emailing showcasecreate@gmail.com. Please be sure and watch your spelling, E's and A's, and not getting those reversed. And we usually respond to most emails within 24 hours. Always check your spam folder for our responses. If you've not received a response in 24 hours, try sending it again. And beyond that, reach out to us in the chat room to let us know you're not getting a response. But we may have been responding the whole time and you just never noticed because you're not checking your spam filter, or you might have misspelled our email address. So if you don't misspell the email address and you are checking your spam folder, you will most likely get a reply from us within 24 hours. We love to hear from you, and that's how you reach us. Bull142 says, hello, Carey and all. I'm sitting in North Georgia with 4 inches of snow and ice. Snow in Georgia. Yeah. Now I've seen it all. Okay, so the write numbers were close to 5,000 on the sequential writes and about 7,000 on the sequential reads. That falls in line with what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for breaking any world records. I'm looking that the drive is performing within a range of what we paid for, and it is. So we have no issues there, thankfully, nor was I expecting any. And now if we really want to torture the hell out of this, we can run Cinebench on it. We probably... Look, running something as intensive, resource intensive as Cinebench on a mobile chip is a big ask because of the limited cooling. Whether it's a laptop, a mini PC, they're not really designed to be beaten like that. But we're going to beat it. We're going to beat it anyway because Minisforum sent us the board. It's not my money on the table. So what's the worst that can happen? Now, if this was my money on the table, I probably wouldn't do this. There's no good reason to do it other than what I call chasing benchmarks. You should be using the computer for a purpose other than benchmarking. It's like buying a car to race it, but you don't actually drive it anywhere. I don't understand that. It's a lot of money, and it's a lot of time, and I just wasn't raised in that environment where we had that kind of money to throw at stuff for fun and blow it up. Hey, let's buy this thing and blow it up. I wish we had that kind of money. I don't have that kind of money today. I don't like the idea of buying firecrackers. We're going to buy this to blow it up. I could think of a better way to spend those those dollars, but to each their own. All right, there's our final numbers, and let's get Cinebench up here. Cinebench is right here. And we'll start our first test. Now, while this test is running, what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this because we'll save that file for later. I want to bring up, let's close that. And let's keep an eye on these temps. Move this over here. And at the same time, where is Cinebench at? Right there. Put this on top. Okay, and we're getting pretty hot. And this is normal. Usually in the first 60 to 90 seconds, we're going to see our peak temps. I get a little nervous when we start exceeding 85 degrees Celsius. And I will shut it down at around 95, even though we can safely hit 100. The idea is you don't want to stay up there. You just want to touch it. You think of it like you're taking something out of a hot oven, and you barely touch the oven rack, and you immediately pull your finger away, and you are not burned, right? There's other times when you're touching the oven rack, and you don't realize you're touching a hot oven rack until the pain comes, and you go, ow, and now you're burned. But you can just tap it really quickly, and it's fine. So if we're hitting super high, what I consider to be high temperatures on our CPU core, like here it says 89.6, but right now it's actually 77. It just means it momentarily hit, let's see, on this core, right here on this one core, it temporarily bumped into 88.6 momentarily. Actually, right now it's running hot. Now it's running at 88. This is our current temperatures on the left side. But look how quickly those temps move from 80s to 70s. And it momentarily hit 90, which puts us into the red. That's a danger zone, meaning we have 10 degrees of room left before potentially crashing. Nothing's going to burn up. The CPU will protect itself from permanent damage, But if we ran it like this all the time, we would degrade the lifespan of the chip. No differently than life. If you want to run your life waking up, hitting the ground running every day, year after year, decade after decade, there's a good chance you're going to wear yourself out and die a little earlier. It's just a good chance, right? Things wear out, and we're going to cause that wear excessively to accelerate if we make it work that hard at those temperatures on a regular basis. It will degrade the silicon, and it will die sooner than if we were to run it periodically at high speeds, right? So, or high temps in this case. Usually they're both related, speeds and temps. So we're hitting a max right now, I see, of 93.6. I get nervous at 95. And this is all on the cooler. And what this is telling us, first of all, we can glean a few things from this information. One is that these chips overall are simply not designed to have giant coolers on them because it defeats the point of being mobile. Here's your mobile computer, and by the way, here's your 5-pound cooler that goes on your 3-ounce processor. Yeah, that makes sense in a desktop. So overall, when we're dealing with laptops, the consequence, if you were to put a large cooler on a laptop in order to get that performance, is now you've cut your battery life by about 60%, if not more, which then makes the laptop less mobile if the battery life can only last half as long. So you've got to pick and choose, which one do you want? Do you want that high performance car that you've got to stop at a gas station every 3 miles? Or do you want the high efficiency car where you only have to stop at a gas station once a month? Or do you want something right down the middle? And these are not right or wrong answers, but you can't have all of them. Or you have to have 3 different cars. Your efficiency car, your high performance car, and then your everyday driver. So understand what you're buying and why you're buying it and what that value is to you before you spend your money, so that you won't have any buyer's remorse. That you understand, I am buying this for this price in order to get this in return. Whether that's efficiency or performance. Pick one. That's all I'm saying. It's not rocket science. All right, let me go back over to the chat while this is running and see what you guys are saying. NCG said this is why ARM is the future, or an Intel Ultra. So both the AMD AI processors, like the AI 370, the Intel Ultra processors, and those Qualcomm ARM processors are much lower in power, but they're also lower in performance. That was all the whining that was going on from the enthusiast computer community. There's nothing wrong with the new Intel Ultra chips, but they're not faster. In some cases, they're slower, but they're more efficient. And it's a brand new generation to build on. But all this e-waste, yeah, pick one. Because those people who always want the latest and greatest, what do you think is happening to their old stuff? They are primary contributors to e-waste, because every 6 months something better's out that's not good enough for what they have 6 months earlier. Look, the 9800X3D from AMD is constantly sold out. Constantly. So what's it been out? 8 weeks maybe? And now AMD's already announced 2 more X3D processors. They're going to put that one to shame. So all these 9800X3D owners that are going to go whining that now there's a 9850X3D, I got to have that one instead. What do you think this cycle is like? It's $500 a chip every 6 months? You're out of your mind. So let these people buy those 9800X3Ds for the first 8 weeks. You can wait and get the 9850X3D, or when the 9850X3D comes out, watch the price and the demand on the 9800X3D drop. Let those people take that big depreciation hit on investment, because it's a crappy investment, just so you can be 10% faster. Well, you and I just let them burn themselves out, and we come in afterwards and pick up what they left on the floor at a fraction of the price. That's the way I see it. But yeah, the ARM processors, look, let me jump back over here. The Galaxy Book 4 Edge that I recently purchased and reviewed here, I took on the trip with me to California to see what it was like to live with. Never once did the battery run low. I used it all day. When I went to bed, I plugged it in, and I thought to myself, you know what? I should not plug it in. I should just keep using this day after day until it tells me to plug it in. But it's so ingrained in me. I'm like, no, I don't want this to, need me to plug it in. I want to run off the battery. I think the lowest I got was after using it for hours and hours and hours. I think it said I had 6 hours remaining estimated life based on what I was using it for. I had some remote access to do for some clients who didn't even know I was on vacation. I never heard a fan ever kick on. It doesn't matter that I'm sitting on the bed with the laptop literally on the sheets of the bed, effectively blocking the air vents, which my Dell XPS or my Galaxy Book 4, Galaxy Book 3, they need that airflow. This one doesn't. I never heard fans kick on, ever. It's not the fastest computer. Sometimes I click on something, there's a slight delay. It's like 2 seconds. It's not the end of the world, so it's 2 seconds. In exchange for all this extra battery life, 22 hours of battery life, I'm willing to wait a couple seconds now and again as I don't know what the hell it's doing. It's doing something. Like I click on to go to the Windows Explorer and there might be a little delay and then it pops up. It may be something I can delve into and fix, or maybe it's checking for something. I can tell it to stop checking. It's 2 seconds. How intolerant has our society become? All I can tell you is, from my perspective, the Galaxy Book 4 Edge is extraordinarily thin and lightweight, and you really notice that when you travel with it. The charger that it uses, I also use to charge my phone, so I didn't need to bring my phone charger. And my phone charger is like a 45-watt charger, and the Galaxy Book 4 is like a 65-watt charger. So when I plug my phone in, it says super fast charging, not just fast charging like it normally says. That's one less thing I got to worry about leaving behind or bringing with me. It shares the same cable, it shares the same adapter. Man, if I could get a toothbrush and a shaver that could all use that USB-C adapter, that's the only thing I need to bring, and that's the way we're moving. It's going that way. Finally, with the help of the European Union, forcing Apple to get on board with that, get rid of the stupid Lightning connector because it's adding to e-waste and it requires separate power adapters and a way to charge you. And thank goodness for the European Union regarding requiring Apple's compliance in that manner. So we are moving that direction, and it's making traveling much more convenient. But I can tell you, as the only machine I had to use, the Galaxy Book 4 Edge had no issues doing anything. And when I wanted to edit a video or render a video, I logged in remotely to my machine at home and did that on the machine remotely because the internet connection I had there wasn't that good. So you're saying, how was I able to post this big 9-hour 4K video? Because I connected remotely to the machine at home, and I said, let's put this video together. Let's render it out at 4K. It said, okay, the rendering's going to take a few hours. And I said, okay, that's good. And I started my day. When I finished my day, I came home that evening. It was sitting there done. I logged in remotely to see that it had finished. And I said, now using my home internet connection, upload that to YouTube. And it said, okay, it'll take a couple hours to upload to YouTube and for YouTube to process. I said, great. And then I closed my remote connection and continued using my Galaxy Book Edge to do other things like answer emails and check on social media posts. It's that easy. It's so simple. And I don't need to slow down my connection with a VPN. What an entire waste of money. People should be using VPNs to protect other people's data. When you go to the hospital and that hospital is connecting to a facility to share your information, they better be on a VPN. But you protecting your own data with a VPN, to me, is nonsense. That is a consumer logic that does not exist in the business world. We are protecting the data for the customer's data. Consumers using VPNs with the idea that they're protecting anything, to me, is silliness. It's like they don't get it. And the VPN companies love it. They love selling you this, what I think is a scam, quite honestly. I think VPNs for consumers are a scam. When I connect remotely to another computer using any remote service, basically like instant house call is my choice, it's an encrypted connection. To put a VPN on that is doubling down your encryption. It's stupid. You're spending money for a service you don't need, and you're not responsible for anybody's data but your own. So who are you doing this for? It doesn't make any sense. That's not why VPNs exist. But consumers are going to be consumers. And from the business side of things, I can't help but look aside and go, why are they doing this? This is completely unnecessary. Now, some people say, well, this way I can steal content that's not available in my area. Oh, good. Somebody spent millions of dollars to create content and you just steal it. That's great. I don't want to hear about it. As a content creator, I spend a lot of money. Thankfully, we have a lot of members that contribute that enable us to be able to do this. But then to hear somebody steals it, now we give it away for free, so it's a different scenario. But when you're talking about a big production house and you look at the list of credits and you're stealing, and there's no other word for it, it's theft. I don't want to hear about it. I'm not the police. It's not my job to enforce any laws. But I am a business, and I have liabilities, and I have a reputation. And if I find out that somebody wants me to get involved as an accomplice to a theft or a crime under my business name, let alone under my personal life, I have no choice but to say no. Doesn't matter if I agree with your ethics or your morals. I have a business to run that I'm held accountable to. Individuals do things businesses would never, ever do because a business has way more to lose than you do. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you I can't get involved for those reasons. And if you find yourself in a business scenario where you're held liable and you make those decisions that enable you to be held accountable for the actions of what other people have done that you've enabled, at least in America, we're in a very litigious society. And the more successful you are, the bigger the target is. So if you're making $1 million a year, you're going to be sued for any kind of a theft. It's just unacceptable. You know, when somebody's got nothing and they're stealing and that's their justification because, well, this company's got enough. Well, that company started out just like you at some point. Somebody just like you with nothing was motivated to create something out of nothing. And now somebody else with nothing goes, well, they have more than they need. I'll just take it, without thought of all the sacrifices that were made to get them there. And so you can do whatever you want. I don't care. But understand that if you reach out to us for help or assistance in doing anything like, I want to watch a show that's not available in my country, we cannot help you with that. There's too much liability and accountability that we take on as a business. You can do whatever you want, but we're not going to help you if it puts us in a scenario that could make us liable. So that's the difference between running a business and being an enthusiast. Enthusiasts can do whatever they want. There's very little consequence. And if there is, it only affects them. It doesn't affect me or anybody else. So have at it. If you want to drink poison, I'm going to tell you not to, but I can't stop you. And the only person that's going to hurt is you. But if I provide you the poison from which you drink, now I'm in trouble legally. So it's the same thing. How are we doing here on our, oh, did it go to sleep on me? Move the mouse. There we go. Is that still running? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Did we seize up? No, we're not frozen. Wow. That 98.2 is very, very high. Although it is showing currently temps in the 40s and 30s, which suggests it's idle. That this test, oh, it did finish. Okay, so 31,460. I can see part of the problem was I did not edit the power plan to prevent this thing from going to sleep. That's what happened, and it took a minute to wake up. So we're going to turn that off, and we're going to turn that to about 3 hours. So there wasn't a problem. However, that heat is enough to make me nervous. But that's under an excessive use case scenario that does not simulate typical usage of a machine like this. but nothing we can't solve. Like if this really bothered us, we could put a better cooler on it. This is a $30 cooler that's really small, and as a result, it's limited in its capacity compared to like a bigger, larger, more expensive cooler. All right, let me get back over to Cinebench and let's run the single core test. And again, we're going to watch our temps on this because this one can get a bit toasty as well. So again, our current temps are down the left side. Our minimum temps recorded are down the middle. I don't really care about those. And we're going to watch the right side. Now, these numbers in red, these are the maximums we temporarily hit, and it's just saving those numbers for us where actual temperatures are right here. And whoops. And come on, close that out. What I'm waiting for is to watch this right side. This stores the highest number for each core that it achieved during the test, or since we started the HW Info software monitoring. So these are the temporary high temperatures, highest temperatures that have been hit for each core. So right now, these are all pretty low, and currently we're down in the 30s and 40s here on all the cores. So you know how to read that screen correctly. This test does run for 10 minutes, and so we've got a little over 8 minutes to run. So while that runs, once again, I'm going to jump back over to the chat. FM Lazar said if you're using free Wi-Fi at a Starbucks, you really should use VPNs. Well, there's always going to be a scenario, no matter what I say. There's always going to be somebody who says, yeah, but, right? That is the effect of being a public figure on the internet, is somebody always has to load exceptions in. And here's the thing from the way I see it. If I were at Starbucks, and remember, I'm a computer technician. I've been in this business over 30 years. I might have learned a thing or two. I mean, let's not exaggerate, but at least one or two things. And one of the things I am most concerned about being at a Starbucks using Wi-Fi that I don't own has to do more with people with security cameras they can zoom right in and see what's on my screen, on my phone, or on my laptop. The people around me can simply look over my shoulder, right? So while you're all zoomed in and focused on your VPN security, you've got a person, you're sitting with a window behind you, and everything you're doing is reflected in that window, and everybody can watch everything you're doing. And this is what bothers me about the internet, is we have people that are so worried about little tiny technical details that the world around them in the most simple form of reality becomes oblivious. I'm going to protect my credit card. Oh, my credit card was declined? Hold on. Now, this is happening in line at Walmart. I'm going to call my credit card company because I'm trying to finish this purchase. I should have money in the account. Yes, I'm calling about my credit card. Now, we're all in line behind this person. What's my account number? It's 4315874. And they're telling the entire world their credit card number. But don't worry, the call's encrypted. Are you kidding me? So what I do, first and foremost, if I'm going to connect to a public Wi-Fi point, which I don't do, with my phone, I simply turn off the Wi-Fi and use the cellular data. On a laptop, if I have to look at any financial information on a public Wi-Fi access point, then I know I'm being watched by cameras and people around me. How can I focus on my screen when I'm worried about people walking around me looking at my screen? Do that in private. Go somewhere private for that. If I'm in a hotel room and I've paid the hotel for the Wi-Fi, or maybe the hotel Wi-Fi is free, so there's nobody around me, I'm in my own hotel room, I'm still not doing it. I'm going to use my remote software like Instant House Call. I'm going to connect to my computer at home. That's an encrypted connection. And everything I'm going to do is on the remote computer. I'm going to open up that browser, go to my bookmarks, go to my credit cards or my bank accounts on the remote computer at home using my home internet connection. And I'm simply using my laptop as a window to see what's on the screen at home and use my mouse and keyboard on my laptop to control that screen at home. It's 100% encrypted. Nobody can snoop it. It's safe, and I don't have to double down on all my bookmarks and locations on 2 computers. I'm simply using one computer as a remote computer. This is the portable one, right? The Galaxy Edge. I don't need Microsoft Office on it. I don't need all the software loaded on the Galaxy Edge. All I need to do is connect to my home computer remotely and use all the software there. It's so easy. It's so safe. It's essentially at no additional cost. There's no additional VPN. Nothing is slowing me down. And I have the high-speed internet connection at home for anything internet related, instead of the randomness Wi-Fi that I have no control over, of the speed, quality, or security of it. So for me, it's a very, very simple solution. If you've got a computer you're traveling with, chances are you've got one at home you don't travel with. If all you have is a portable computer and that's the one computer you have, I still wouldn't put a VPN on it. I still wouldn't. I would wait until I was on my own internet, or I would provide my own hotspot. So I would use either tethering my phone or use my cellular phone provider to get a hotspot that I could utilize in my tablet or my laptop. Because otherwise, no matter how much you think you've got this whole game figured out, you don't. You absolutely have no idea what the next scam is and how you're being watched when you're not at home and you're in your own spot that you belong in. When you're out in the public area, you are open to the public. When you're in a hotel room and you don't know who was there behind you, before you, and what they left behind, even though it's never happened before, you are rolling the dice and you're going to the casino going, I know how to beat the casino. You're never going to beat the casino. I mean, not consistently. You might get away with it for a little while. They're going to catch on. It's all going to flip and you're going to be taken every single time. So when it comes to giving advice to paying customers who would pay me to tell you this, the answer is never a VPN. Unless you're a business and you're protecting customer data, then all the rules change. No exceptions. But again, I'm taking it from trying to keep things simple, inexpensive, and 100% in control, not open to variables of the public. And as you can imagine, if I get it wrong, I can have the crap suit out of me. Okay, my business can be gone tomorrow. That's why I don't have much of a sense of humor when it comes to this. I don't take it lightly, because I could be out on the streets without a house, with no way to pay my bills, if I treated it like it wasn't important. My life depends on it. The ability for me to be independent, to pay my bills, requires that I take accountability and responsibility for the advice that I'm being paid to give, because I will be held to it if my clients who pay me end up losing data. It's priceless data. How do you think that's going to end for me? I'm just going to suddenly have a bunch of money to pay attorneys, or do I just close the business down? Those are my 2 options. And if I pay all the attorneys, there won't be any money to run the business. So we're back to closing the business down. So it's nothing I take lightly. It's nothing that's close enough. It absolutely has to be locked in and guaranteed. And that's the only way I can recommend it to achieve those results 100% of the time. So anyway, there's a logic and a reasoning that goes behind the advice you see online, which is often this is simple and provide you, just give us some money, right? Like a VPN, just give us some money, we'll protect you. Protect yourself. You could have the fanciest burglar alarm put on your house. Somebody knocks on your door and says they're from the power company and they really aren't, and you invite them in. What good was the burglar alarm? You just spent all that money and you overrode it because you were so easily deceived. I cannot afford to do that to my customers, to have that even be a possibility. So everything I recommend here is the same as I recommend for my business clients. And I'm explaining to you why. It's not that I'm strict or that it's got to be my way. It's that I want to stay in business. I don't want my customers to lose their data. Regardless, it's still my reputation online. Michael MacArthur joins us as looks like is he a new member? I can't see the numbers. Welcome in, Michael. We got to do something about those badges, Mara. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for us for today. I just wanted to check email right quick. Ah, Frankie B sent us a PayPal contribution. Right on. Thank you, Frankie. Yeah, I can't see the numbers of membership.
I thought I fixed it. I thought it looked pretty good.
Well, you come here and look. So, see Michael MacArthur? How long has he been a member?
24.
You see a 24?
Yeah.
I see some green splotches.
Fine.
Mara's been playing around with the badges, trying to just mix it up a little bit, and we're still trying to find a...
I thought they looked great.
Close up. You stand back here and look at it.
Put my glasses on.
Yeah, exactly. My glasses aren't that good. Oh, it does say 24.
Duh.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can maybe make that stand out better.
Different color, because I thought the green was nice.
Well,
it's right on your back.
I can't read it. Yeah, back to work.
Oh, Lord.
We'll find another design that'll work.
Fine, fine.
I'm so difficult to please. Oh, now he wants numbers he can see. Oh, this guy. Thank you. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for us for today. We'll take a quick look here one more time on our results. Are they done? Almost done. So our maximum temps, again, they're not exceeding 98.2. There may be a temperature limit in the BIOS that we can even lower that if we wanted to, and that would just prevent the CPU from getting that hot as an alternative to changing the cooler. There's really not much in the performance difference, honestly. You can go into the BIOS, for example, and change your wattage, boost it up a little bit, but very rarely will you notice much outside of benchmarks in the way of performance of actual use. So again, you're going to see this on a lot of other YouTube channels talking about how you can go in the BIOS and, you know, lose your efficiency in order to gain a little tiny bit more power. I think it's just a complete delusion for people that are looking at benchmarks to determine their happiness. If your computer performs the tasks that you need it to do, and it's performing that without any crashes and without any delays, then you should be happy regardless of what a benchmark tells you, in my opinion. If on the other hand, all you're doing is chasing benchmarks, this isn't really the channel for you, because that's a temporary solution, and every 6 months is going to be pushed down by the next generation of chip from AMD or Intel. About every 6 months, one or the other comes out with a new chip that's going to be faster and better performing than the chip before it. So even if you can succeed at this game, you're only ahead at a max of about 6 months. That's no way to run a business. I mean, if I could, I would, but nobody's paying me for that. So the bottom line is, how can we get the best value, the best bang for our buck, right? And so we have traditional PCs. We can build mini ITX, micro ATX, and full ATX systems. And by now, you know, I started this channel in 2008. When I did build videos, they were pretty niche, and YouTube didn't have very many viewers. Well, the world's a very different place today in 2025. And specifically, YouTube is a very different place. Build videos are everywhere. The interest in them is waning. Most computer build videos get between 3,000 and 6,000 views, and that's it. Many PC reviews, about the same. So the public in general isn't really that interested in it like they used to be. But there are more options now than there used to be. A lot of people are able to just get by using their phones. They don't need a computer at all when they can do everything on their phone and without all the security risk. We go back to camera one while I continue on my rant. We have mini PCs that people will turn their noses up at before they realize how much multiple times faster they are than the desktop they're using at home for a fraction of what they paid for that desktop, that don't take up all the room and don't require all the dusting and noise. Okay, Now we have mobile platforms on a non-mobile motherboard, which is fascinating to me. What a great concept. To go back in time, the whole reason the Intel Core Duo processor was so popular and why it finally came back to beating AMD's XP Athlon line was because Intel took the mobile chip design and converted it to the desktop. This was almost 20 years ago. Okay? Has it been 20 years? You'd think that was plain common sense, but it wasn't. They said, the mobile chip division said, look how much power we can get out of, performance we can get out of using this little bit of power and this little bit of heat. And somebody at Intel said, why aren't we doing this for the desktop? And so the desktop versions were bigger and they were more performing and more voltage, but they were a better value than AMD. And up until that point, AMD was the better value than Intel. The AMD Athlon XP series, I was selling 20 of those for every one Intel I sold. Now, things flip the other way. And now AMD, at least in gaming, they have that X3D and their Radeon graphics that are built into the chip, which are far outpacing Intel in those genres. And one always copies the other. Remember, the people who founded AMD and the people who founded Intel, they worked together. They were all friends and they all knew each other. And they split off into two separate companies. So they're from the same source. It's sort of like, it's weird to pick one over the other because one makes bad decisions and the other one makes good decisions. And then the one making good decisions starts making bad decisions, and the one making the bad decisions starts, and it just keeps going back and forth and back and forth. And all I'm interested in for my clients is to find them the best value. And I want my clients to be happy, and I want them to refer me, and I want them to come back again. And if that means selling them an Intel at that time, that's what I'm going to sell them, or recommending them. If AMD is that answer, then that's what I'm going to recommend. Now, at the end of the day, some clients are more knowledgeable than others, and they might tell me what they want. I'm happy to build either. I don't care. I don't care if it's AMD or Intel. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not a gamer, so the advances in AMD's integrated graphics don't really impact me at all. If anything, Intel's graphics are better for video rendering and creators. That's what I do. I'm a creator. That's why you're watching this video, because I'm creating it. But that's just me, right? And my clients run businesses. Those are my bread and butter. That's how I'm able to stay in business over 30 years. And those businesses aren't playing games either. Their livelihoods are on the line, as are those of their employees and maybe even the customers they service. So there's a lot of weight on my shoulders to perform, to make sure that I give my clients reason to come back again. The next time they have a computer issue, whether they need to replace or upgrade the computer network, whatever the problem is, I hope their first thought is, I got to call Carey, because he's going to take care of us right the first time. He's not going to take forever to get it done. And when it's done, we're never going to have a problem with it. And if we do, we call Carey, not just some random person who answers the phone at some big corporation. And forgot where I was going. Yeah, whether that's Intel or AMD doesn't really change anything. I'm still building a good system at a good value that's going to be reliable, that the customer is going to be happy with. And all I'm trying to do when I build a system is figure out what the customer's needs are. How are you intending to use this? Because if the answer is gaming, you're probably better off with AMD. Unless you're providing your own graphics card, so you're a more serious gamer, that means you're dropping more serious dollars down, and you're going to be putting a NVIDIA, RTX card in there or something. Then almost the difference is negligible between the two chips in that scenario. So sometimes it's dependent on the game itself, just like with a customer in business, may be dependent on the software they're using. In which case, one chip may be better than another chip, even from the same manufacturer. So that's why I think this whole picking sides is ridiculous, because there is no one size fits all. To each their own, and enjoy what you have. And don't look to other people to approve your purchase. Who cares if they like what you bought? Do you like what you bought? Because you're the one who paid for it, and you're the one who'll suffer with the consequences or enjoy the rewards. Nobody else will, just you. So what anybody else thinks about it has nothing to do with your reality. It changes nothing. If I choose to use Intel or AMD, what do you care? What, do you own stock? Are you with Verizon? You should be with T-Mobile. What do you care? Do you work for the company? What's in it for you? Well, you should have it because that's what I have. Ooh, you must be insecure. You must not be satisfied that you've made the right decision if you're looking to others to approve your decision. You should know if you're happy or not with what you're paying and what you're getting and if it meets your needs, regardless of what anybody else says. But I guess the internet wouldn't be the same without that. I do encourage you to not allow the thoughts of others to impede your own happiness. You get what's right for you. Don't worry about anybody else. And when you're servicing clients that are paying you, you get what's right for them. All right. That's all I'm trying to say. Guys, thank you guys so much. A shout out, of course, to our friend Buster out there in Scotland. Such a super member here. Frankie B, Oystein, Paul Gray in Australia. To all of our friends, all of our members, thank you guys so much for making these videos possible. Thanks again to Minisforum for sending us this really cool motherboard. What a great way to kick off 2025 with something novel, unique, and I don't see any consequence. I don't see any downside to this. I like everything about it. If you need more power, you want 4 RAM sticks and regular desktop RAM and Gen 5 NVMe and Type-C USB, just show us the money. But for regular everyday folks, this is rocket ship fast. This is incredibly quick. It's very quiet and it's very easy to build. So, you know, that's all I'm trying to do here is to raise awareness and introduce you to options. It's like having 31 flavors of ice cream. You're not going to like them all. You pick the one that's right for you. Don't worry about which ones I like. But I want you to know these are options to consider. And for you to even maybe mention to a friend if somebody's approaching you for advice, you might think, hey, you know, I saw that video Carey did on this thing. That might be right for this other person. I'm going to mention it to them. That's the point of these videos. I'm not here to tell you what you should or should not buy. I'll tell you if there's something I would buy or not and why. But at the end of the day, what I love about the PC industry versus, say, Apple is all of this freedom of choice in both budget, compatibility, upgradability, and length of time that you can use systems. Modern systems today, you can easily get 10 years of any modern computer you buy today, roughly over $300, is likely going to last you 10 years before it no longer can perform like secure operations online, which is what we're running into with Windows 10, which is like over 10 years old already. So at some point, because the internet security is constantly being poked at and prodded at, if you want to be safe online, even if you have a perfectly good working computer, it may not be safe for you to use it. And that's why I say 10 years. It's not the lifespan. These things will probably last 70, 80 years easy. They'll probably outlive us, most of them. But their usefulness degrades over time because of the advancements of the internet and the hackers and the thieves and the sneaky ways they get in, and the computer becomes unable to effectively protect you like it used to. So for those reasons, we do need to upgrade from time to time, even though technically it all still works. So hopefully that answers your questions, and I thank you guys for hanging out with me today and for interacting with us. Somebody in the chat whose name I can't pronounce says, do you have a video of how to set up a home encrypted network and configure access for dynamic, or would I consider making one? Basically, if you want remote access, I use a program called Instant House Call, and it's doing all this for you. So you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. This is like an old, like if you asked me how to get remote access 10 years ago, that would be a video I would have made 10 years ago. today, trying to do it the way you're describing, to me, doesn't make any sense anymore with the way software and remote access have advanced over the years. So I would just open your mind up to the new way that we do this stuff, and it's much easier. It's way more secure, way more reliable, much easier to set up. Well, the old ways are still possible. It's not practical, not in a business sense. So no, I wouldn't make a video on that, but I have made videos on, say, for example, instant house call, and you might check that out. A home network wouldn't necessarily need to be encrypted on your own home network, because if they're already in your house, they could just take your computer and the encryption's defeated at that point. So that doesn't make any sense. And for businesses, businesses that require encryption within them generally have their own IT staff, and they would not be watching my videos to watch how to do that. So while I appreciate the suggestion, it would not be my approach. But you know, if you have other suggestions, don't let my suggestions of different approaches discourage you, because you might just find there's much easier ways to do these things today that can solve the problem faster and cheaper. I'm just looking if there's any other questions here before we wrap up. I think we've got them all. Phil Stodd said the badges look okay to me. I'm having a hard time seeing them, you know. I can see some of them better than others. Chris Dunn says, thank you for this information. I did not know that. There you go, right on. Nubia says, please get Minisforum's new NAS. They showed it off at CES. Yeah, we started off the show talking about that. So if you've missed any part of the broadcast, know that you can go back and watch everything that you've missed. And we'll certainly, when that time comes, whenever they release that product, we'll see what we can do to get our hands on one. For sure, I'm very interested in that personally. Yeah, that'll wrap it up for us for today. Thank you again to Minisforum for allowing us to be an early reviewer of this product. I really like it a lot. When I get the case, we'll make a part 2 to this video, which I hope this is going to fit in that case. Otherwise, there's going to be a part 3. That's all coming up next week or the week after. And I have an older Alienware laptop that needs a battery, and we'll also check the RAM and SSD conditions out. And if I have time over the weekend, we'll open that bad boy up. I've never opened this before. It's an older unit, and still very viable. It was very expensive when it was purchased, and in general, the more expensive computers that you buy today have a more usable life over a period of time than the cheaper computers. So this computer is still very usable. I don't know if it's Windows 11 compliant or not. We'll take a look at that. Probably not. We still have all the way till mid-October for Windows 10 before support ends. And supposedly Microsoft is going to offer a $30 a year continual security update option for people who don't want to upgrade their machines that are not Windows 11 compatible, and they want to hold themselves back in the past on Windows 10 going into a second decade. That's their choice if they want to do it. And it may be an option on this Alienware, or maybe not. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We got to see what it is first. And we'll do all that live, unscripted and unrehearsed, just like we do every video here. And I will try to get to it, if not tomorrow, then Sunday, I hope. In the meantime, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Thank you again to Mara, who's in the background doing all the administrative work, which is a ton of work here on YouTube, including all the video notes that contain the discounts for Acronis and RoboForm, for the Windows and Office license keys. All the links to all the products you've seen today are all in that video description. The thumbnails, the titling, everything you see, Mara's doing all that work. Thankfully, I don't have to do that anymore. And a super shout out to her for all of that commitment she's got to. She hasn't thrown her hands up in frustration yet. She seems to actually enjoy it, which is weird. But Thank you, of course, to her for all of that work. And we will see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now. I'm looking for an outro. Oh, we'll use this one. Here we go.